Warrior Lore. Chapter 2977. Earth. The demon ancestors' actions did not affect this place for the time being. Under the isolation of the boundless starry sky array, all of the terrifying power was blocked far away, unable to reach this place. The existence of this world was extremely different from the other worlds. Here, the flow of time was extremely slow. In the 33 heavens, 10,000 years had passed in a flash, but in the world of Earth, less than a year had passed. Thus, compared to the time when Lu Xiaoyu had brought Xiaolong to this world, there were not many changes here. However, this world of Earth was completely different from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Even if the experts of those two powerful worlds came here, they would probably be confused because everything here was too different. In the world of Earth, the living beings were extremely weak, and the spiritual energy was so thin that it made one's hair stand on end. Whether it was the human race or other living beings, there were very few cultivators. Even in some hidden mountains and rivers, one could only find a few weak cultivators. They were not much stronger than ordinary people, let alone the people of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds. In addition, in this world, only the human race stood out. They stood at the top of all living beings, possessing extremely high intelligence. In this world, humans gathered and lived. Towering buildings soared into the sky, row upon row. Under the transformation of the human race, the world of Earth had obtained extremely powerful abilities through extremely strange methods. The human race of this world is unable to cultivate and change themselves, so they seek out the many mysteries of this world. They start from the minute details and obtain methods that we cultivators would not even care about. Their residence, travel, production, and other aspects all involve something called technology. Back then, Lu Xiaoyu had said this to Xiaolong. His soul came from this world, reborn in the 3,000 boundless worlds. Thus, he understood everything here very well. The human race of Earth was different from the 3,000 boundless worlds and the 33 heavens. They relied on cars, planes, trains, and other tools to communicate with each other. They relied on telephones, networks, and other such methods. There were too many to mention. In the beginning, Xiaolong felt that these things were very new and interesting. He couldn't help but admire the human race of this world. They could actually learn so many strange techniques just by observing the mysteries of the elements in the world. However, in the eyes of these experts, these methods could not be considered profound at all. If a cultivator was willing to explore these places, it would definitely be much easier than the humans on Earth. But then again, under the premise that they did not have enough strength, these methods were the most suitable way for the human race on Earth to survive. Xiaolong understood this principle very well. Don't look at how weak the life forms of this world are. The weapons they create are terrifying. Even if a small world of the 33 heavens were to fight to the death with them, I fear it would still be difficult for it to survive. Lu Xiaoyu had also said the same thing to Xiaolong. He had even taken his brother to a place. The humans there had carried out a terrifying explosion in a desert. The terrifying energy soared into the sky, almost tearing the sky apart. What surprised Xiaolong the most was that there was a kind of strange power that seemed to have a super penetrative ability. It could cause terrible damage to living beings and kill them without them noticing. Lu Xiaoyu had told him that it was a so-called nuclear explosion experiment, and only a small part of its power had been displayed. If the most terrifying war were to come, the entire world of Earth would be overturned. No living beings would be able to escape, and they would all die. The human race of this world is really extraordinary. However, even though their methods are strange, it is not enough to completely destroy this world. After all, this place is related to the great god Pangu. Xiaolong sighed when he heard Lu Xiaoyu's words. They had been to many places in this world, and Xiaolong had also seen many novel things. In terms of war, if the life forms of Earth were to fight to the death with the 33 heavens or one of the 3,000 boundless worlds, the difference would not be too great. Of course, the premise was that they could not break free from the shackles of this world, nor could they bring the methods of this world to those worlds. In addition, cultivators had many methods that were even more extraordinary in comparison. In terms of victory and defeat, There was no need to think too much. In addition to these, Xiaolong also knew that there were some differences in the world of Earth. This place was closely related to the great god Pangu. However, what kind of relationship existed, even Lu Xiaoyu could not be too specific about it. But he knew one thing: the great god Pangu was here. It was also because of this that Lu Xiaoyu chose to go into seclusion here to break through to the final imageless realm. Night. When the sky was filled with neon lights illuminating the entire city, rows of shiny street lamps crisscrossed, cutting the city into pieces. The traffic on the road was like shuttling shuttles, coming and going like the wind. The great Tao transforms into yin and yang. Yin and yang evolves into 10,000 laws, and 10,000 laws weaves into the boundless universe. At the end of the path of cultivation, it is a process of Tao unification. The great Tao originates from chaos, but where does chaos come from? In the vast night sky, a huge iron bird flew with a terrifying roar, cutting across the sky at an extremely fast speed. This was something called an airplane in the world of Earth. It could travel thousands of miles in a day. At this time, a figure was sitting cross-legged on the upper part of the airplane. Under the night sky, it was impossible to see his specific appearance. Only a hazy outline could be seen. One could vaguely see that this was the figure of a man. His long hair was tied behind his head, and his dressing was completely different from this world. He sat cross-legged on the back of the airplane just like that. A strong wind blew past his side, but not even a strand of hair was lifted. The truth-severing realm begins to comprehend the power of laws. The immortal realm traces the origin of laws. The meditative realm condenses the origin of the great Tao. When carrying the Tao, it is to comprehend the power of chaos. However, this last step still seems to be unfathomable. The man spoke softly. His voice was very soft, and no outsider could hear it at all. This man was Lu Xiaoyu, who came to the world of Earth to seek a breakthrough. He had left the 33 heavens for more than 1,000 years, but he had only been in this world for a short few months. Lu Xiaoyu knew in his heart that the reason why the flow of time here was so different was because of the great god Pangu. According to the ancient Taoists of Huaxia, the world came from chaos and chaos began from nothing. Lu Xiaoyu murmured softly, and then asked himself, "Then, what is nothing?" His brows furrowed slightly, with some confusion. These principles were very simple to understand. Perhaps a human from Huaxia could explain a little. According to some ancient records, it was known that heaven and earth evolved from chaos. In the end, it gave birth to thousands of living beings, colorful worlds, and endless laws of the great Tao. Chaos, on the other hand, began from nothing. Simply put, nothing was nothing, and it didn't exist. Since it didn't exist, where did chaos come from? Lu Xiaoyu didn't understand. It wasn't that he couldn't understand the true profoundness of this. He had stepped into the path-bearing realm and had been at the peak for many years. The power of the origin of chaos had long been mastered by him. However, to be honest, he had been comprehending for many years, but he still hadn't been able to comprehend that mysterious place. What kind of place did the predecessor of spirit creation go to? Lu Xiaoyu couldn't help but think of another thing. Back then, when Du Xiaofu had led people into the 18 levels of hell, he and Xiaolong had gone to a special place. There, the two of them had some new knowledge. If they really wanted to talk about what they had seen, it could be summed up in one sentence. There was everything, but there was nothing. This feeling was extremely mysterious and unfathomable. It was very contradictory, but it was a real thing. All the magnificent and gorgeous scenes, upon closer inspection, were like a dream. It was as if life was changing, real and fake, and it was impossible to grasp. It was also in that place that Lu Xiaoyu had obtained great enlightenment, and there were faint signs of a breakthrough. As a result, a lot of time was wasted, and there was almost a huge change in the operation in the 18 levels of hell. Fortunately, he got out of the state in time and rushed back to the 33 heavens. Only then did he stop the situation from worsening. However, the mysterious feeling that he was about to grasp was also broken at that time. At this moment, it was extremely difficult to connect it again. Out of nothing, there is chaos, there is all things, everything comes from nothing. Lu Xiaoyu sat on the back of the plane and murmured. He looked into the distance and saw endless bright lights. He could also sense the mountains and rivers that stretched for thousands of miles. Everything that existed in the world was both real and illusory at the same time. If one were to think about it in detail, was it real or fake? At this time, even Lu Xiaoyu couldn't understand this question. But he knew a fact. Everything in the world, even if it dissipated into smoke, it would still leave behind a corresponding trace. It wouldn't be truly obliterated. For example, that towering tree. It could be swallowed up by fierce flames and turned to ashes, or it could also decay into mud and flow with the flow of water. But what was undeniable was that this tree had existed. Moreover, after it died, it continued to exist in another form. The only difference was that it was no longer a tree. From this perspective, what was true nothingness? Chaos was born. All things were created. All things were annihilated, and all things returned to chaos. Then, where did chaos return to? Lu Xiaoyu knew the answer. It was nothing. But the question took a big detour and returned to the original starting point. What was true nothingness? There is no image. There is no image. I'm afraid what I'm searching for is this ultimate secret. Lu Xiaoyu sighed and stood up on the back of the plane. At this time, the plane had already reached its destination and was slowly descending. Lu Xiaoyu took a step forward, step by step. It was as if he was walking on a stairway to heaven. He slowly rose into the sky and reached the clouds. He released the protective force outside his body, allowing the biting wind in the sky to blow on his face. He felt the power from nature, wrapping his hair and fluttering it behind him. The realm of no image can open up a world, create a spirit, and control all living beings. The essence is to obtain the strongest meaning, to be able to create something out of nothing. Lu Xiaoyu thought of great god Panga, heavenly lord Daluo, demon ancestor Rahu, and senior spirit creation. This was the power of no image. Once one grasped the origin of chaos and obtained the power of nothingness, one could create something out of nothing, open up a huge world, and give birth to all living beings. These gods and demons that walked out of the chaos had an innate advantage. They had grasped the origin of chaos very early on and were closer to nothingness. Therefore, they saved a lot of effort compared to Lu Xiaoyu in this step. But in Lu Xiaoyu's heart, this was not a fundamental difference. Gods and demons were also living beings, born from nothingness. There was no difference in essence between them and all living beings in this world. Since they could comprehend the existence of nothingness, why couldn't he? Why don't I try this? Suddenly, Lu Xiaoyu raised his eyebrows as he thought of a possibility. His heart began to beat violently, almost going crazy from the things he imagined. Since everything originated from nothingness, what was the end of the world? Could it be nothingness? If that was the case, didn't it mean that he could follow this train of thought and give it a try? He quickly thought of the entire process. First, he would use his own chaotic force to create all living beings. Then, he would let all living beings be born continuously until the world was destroyed. He would go to the end of time and space and feel what the most real annihilation was, what the true nothingness was. Naturally, with Lu Xiaoyu's current cultivation, the world he created was no different from the real world. He could also open up a huge space and give birth to all living beings in this world. But there was a huge difference between it and the real world. The world he created required him to constantly pour in energy to maintain it. Otherwise, it would quickly dissipate and not last long. The biggest flaw was that he had not grasped the concept of nothingness. Perhaps through this method, he could really experience the ultimate path. However, Lu Xiaoyu's heart was beating like a drum. Would the consequences of doing this cause him to be annihilated into nothingness? Would he be able to wake up in the end? At this moment, he was weighing some things in his heart. If there were not so many restraints, he would definitely give it a try. But now, the demon ancestor was not dead, and the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds were not at peace. In addition, his junior brother Du Xiaofu was still in a deep sleep, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. If he really couldn't wake up, not even a speck of dust could be left behind, and he truly became an existence of nothingness, then who could do all of this? Lu Xiaoyu calculated. It was not that he did not dare to do this, but there were many things that he could not let go of. Huff, huff, huff. Gusts of wind blew past, cutting Lu Xiaoyou's body like knives, but it did not cause him any harm. He stood quietly in the sky, and the bright moon moved horizontally, illuminating his body. The green-robed figure stood there, motionless, as if he was a statue standing in the sky. He maintained this posture, as if he had been standing there for a long time. This dead knot cannot be broken, and I cannot kill the demon ancestor. In the end, I cannot protect the 3,000 boundless worlds and the 33 heavens. I'm afraid that in the end, even this small world of Earth will not be left. If that's the case, then let's take a gamble. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Xiaoyu suddenly spoke. He looked at the sky, and there was still no change. His eyes shone with a bright light, more dazzling than the brightest star in the night sky. Everything still needed him to arrange and change. Whether it was the demon ancestor or Du Xiaofu, perhaps they all needed him to do something. If he could not successfully break through to the no-image state, he would not have enough strength to change more things. The 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would become the demon domain. Rather than that, he might as well take a gamble and fight for the best possibility with the courage to cut off all means of retreat. Let's begin, Lu Xiaoyu said softly, and with a flash of his body, he left Earth. He did not plan to try it in this world. Instead, he found a lonely planet nearby and sat down cross-legged. Lu Xiaoyu gently closed his eyes, like an old monk in meditation. Immediately after, a mysterious aura surged out from his body, quickly spreading out around him. This aura was extremely vast and overbearing. In just a moment, it enveloped the entire planet, and it continued to spread and expand rapidly. With Lu Xiaoyou's current strength, if he went all out and covered the entire planet with his aura, it was unknown how many such planets could be contained. Under such circumstances, a unique aura suddenly appeared in the starry sky, as if it was covered by a mysterious halo. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Inside Lu Xiaoyou's body, waves of chaotic energy boiled like boiling porridge. This chaotic energy was compressed by him, and finally gathered into a ball of light under his navel. Layers of rolling energy were fluctuating in the ball of light, releasing a dazzling light. Vaguely, through the light, one could see that the chaotic energy inside was beginning to transform into yin and yang. In the end, it transformed into the shape of a yin-yang fish. Qi, qi, qi. The yin-yang fish rotated, and a mighty force was released. It was like a terrifying divine disk that could destroy everything in the world. It was ferocious and wanted to break free from his body. However, the yin-yang fish was suppressed by Lu Xiaoyu, and it calmed down. From time to time, it would jump a few times, trying to break free from his restraint. At this time, Lu Xiaoyu went all out, mobilizing all of his energy. The power he displayed was extremely terrifying, almost beyond his control. However, this was not the result he wanted. He continued to pour chaotic energy into the yin-yang fish, wanting to squeeze out all of the energy in his body, leaving not a trace behind. At the same time, he had to control the movements of the yin-yang fish, suppressing it to prevent it from going beyond his control. Lu Xiaoyou's purpose of doing this was to seek the final eruption. He wanted to see what kind of state the world he evolved with all of his strength would reach. In the end, he wanted to control the growth and evolution of this world, from weak to strong, from prosperous to exhausted, until it died out and ceased to exist. Chapter 29:78. Lu Xiaoyu sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Layers of vast aura surged around his body. The yin-yang fish pattern spun crazily, emitting terrifying invisible waves. If any living creature approached it, it would probably die a violent death and be annihilated without a trace. Under Lu Xiaoyou's continuous compression, the yin-yang tai chi fish was still shrinking, and a mighty force burst out from it. As the boundless chaotic aura surged, it separated and turned into yin and yang energy, becoming a part of the yin-yang tai chi fish's power. Suddenly, at a certain moment, there was a loud bang. When the yin-yang tai chi fish was compressed to the extreme, it instantly exploded. Walala! Terrifying power burst out crazily, rushing out from Lu Xiaoyou's body. It was endless, violent, and shocking. Torrential rays of light shot out and enveloped countless star fields. Under the influence of this force, the withered stars did not even have the slightest ability to resist and were directly turned into clouds of smoke and dust that drifted away. In the boundless space, everything turned into dust. Only the power released by Lu Xiaoyu was boiling. He sat cross-legged in the center of this power like a god, the ruler of everything. At this time, Lu Xiaoyou's face also turned pale. He squeezed out all of his power. All the chaotic origin in his body was separated, condensing and compressing into yin and yang energy, and then quickly spreading out. The power of the world, condense. With his eyes closed, Lu Xiaoyu said in a low voice, and his hands formed a complicated and obscure seal. Accompanying it was the terrifying power in the surroundings that began to boil and roar. These layers of power kept intertwining, changing, and combining, and wisps of vitality bloomed. Soon, strange scenes appeared one after another. In the vast space, endless land was spreading and forming. Mountains and rivers rose from the ground, and rivers flowed from east to west. In the periphery of the space, there was a special power formed, intertwining and deriving from each other, shaking out the terrifying power of the law, causing this space to be completely independent. Thick clouds appeared in the sky, and terrifying thunder and lightning were like dancing dragons and snakes, wreaking havoc and rampaging, and a destructive aura filled the air. Roar. Suddenly, a terrifying roar reverberated, as if it had flowed down from an ancient time and arrived in this world. Following this roar, one could see an immeasurably long dragon body rising into the air, cruising around Lu Xiaoyou's space, bringing with it endless divine might. Goo! Then, another bird-like sound was heard. What followed was an endless amount of flame that burned in all directions. It was as if it could burn the entire world to ashes. This was a massive firebird. Its wings were spread out horizontally, and its tail was long. It was extremely similar to the phoenix race of the 33 heavens. The gigantic dragon and crimson phoenix, one in front and one behind, were extremely terrifying. These two races were very different from the dragons, phoenixes, and azure dragons of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. However, in terms of appearance, they were very similar. The dragon and phoenix were incomparably terrifying, as if they were the most powerful creatures, suddenly appearing between heaven and earth. This was a life form born from the world Lu Xiaoyu produced. It was like the ancestor dragon and primordial phoenix of the 33 heavens, a pre-celestial life form, endlessly powerful. However, after these two appeared, everything didn't end there. As time passed, one could see more and more life forms appear, jumping around in joy in this world. An incomparably huge black tiger was born from the heavens and earth, and it moved through the mountains and forests. A small island appeared on the sea, and it was engraved with a chessboard-like brand. Then, a head suddenly popped out from one end of the island, and it turned out to be a huge divine turtle. In a certain deep mountain, a strange creature was born. It was shaped like a snake, but it had 8 heads, and it could spurt out different kinds of power. Life forms appeared in this world one after another. They were born with the support of the power of heaven and earth. As soon as they appeared, they possessed an extremely terrifying strength. However, these life forms were still rapidly growing. They seized the power of good fortune between heaven and earth, and their cultivation strength rapidly increased. The entire space was filled with the rich power of laws. This was all created by Lu Xiaoyu, forming the powerful rules between heaven and earth, condensing into a vast and boundless order. Wang Wang Wang, in the shape of this world, more and more pre-celestial life forms appeared. In the process of the world's evolution, these life forms comprehended the world's laws and principles, comprehending the mysteries of the great Tao, and became more and more powerful. Only at a certain moment, with the birth of the first post-celestial life form, some invisible force between heaven and earth seemed to be touched and stopped abruptly. From then on, all life forms that were born were post-celestial. At the same time, the world's rules and laws took shape, suddenly solidifying as if they had evolved to an extreme level. The era of pre-celestial life forms had come to an end, but the wonderful evolution of the world didn't stop there. In this space, countless post-celestial life forms appeared. Compared to the pre-celestial life forms, their numbers were many times greater. The embryonic form of the world has been condensed. Sitting cross-legged in the center of the world, Lu Xiaoyu murmured. He gently exhaled and muttered to himself, "Continue." As his soft words fell, a loud rumble spread out. It was as if a bolt of lightning had struck this space, causing the entire world to be on the verge of collapse. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the mountains, forests, rivers, and lakes all expanded madly. The entire world continued to expand, and in a short period of time, the overall scale of the world increased by several times. This scene was too terrifying. It was as if this world wanted to expand to an infinite extent in a limited amount of time. In fact, Lu Xiaoyu knew in his heart that when the great god Pangu, Celestial Absolute, and Rahu of the demon race were creating a world, they absolutely wouldn't forcefully interfere with the growth of the world in such a short period of time. To those chaos fiend gods, creating a world was like creating a beloved object or a process of blossoming and bearing fruit. There was no need to deliberately do so. Once the embryonic form of the world stabilized, they would let go and allow the world to slowly grow on its own. When the melon matured, it would fall, just like the ancient Pango world and the demon world. But Lu Xiaoyu was different. This time, he only wanted to comprehend the concept of nothingness. He wanted to comprehend a trace of that power and break through the realm of Tao. During this process, he had to constantly participate in the changes of the world. The shape of the entire world had to be maintained by him with all his strength. Only then could it continue to exist. The biggest difference between the realm of Tao and the realm of No Image was that after they created the world, they didn't need to inject their own power into it. Once Lu Xiaoyu withdrew his power, the entire world would quickly dissipate and return to nothingness, no longer existing. When the great god Pangu, Celestial Absolute, and the others created their worlds, they would set them aside and let them continue to evolve naturally. This was the huge difference between the two. Huff, huff, huff. Under Lu Xiaoyu's control, this world grew rapidly. Not long after, the entire world became incomparably prosperous. The four primitive laws of time, space, matter, and life were all present. Endless derivative laws appeared, weaving the rules and order of the world. In this world, life was extraordinary. Countless living beings appeared here, almost reaching the peak of the world. This was Lu Xiaoyu's goal. What he wanted was to evolve this world to its most prosperous state. It was like picking up stones and piling them up into a mountain, and on the day this mountain was formed, he would suddenly push it down. What Lu Xiaoyu needed to do next was to gently push it down. He let out a light breath and his eyes were no longer closed. Instead, he glanced at his work. It had to be said that this world was very prosperous. Because of his full strength, the living beings in it had reached the peak in a short period of time. It was extremely terrifying. In the form of this world, many sentient life forms had reached the realm of Tao bearing. If these life forms were given enough time, it wouldn't be a problem for them to break through to Tao bearing. But Lu Xiaoyu was clear in his heart that all of this was just an illusion. As long as he couldn't comprehend nothingness, then all of these things would be rootless duckweeds. They wouldn't be able to survive for long until the day his strength was exhausted. In the end, he wouldn't be able to escape the fate of death. This gamble, if it succeeds, then there's no hope. If it fails, then everything will be for naught. Lu Xiaoyu said indifferently, using a voice that only he could hear. He sat there for a moment, but it also seemed like he had been sitting there for countless years. In the end, his expression became extremely calm. He slowly raised a hand and spat out a word from his lips, "Go." As the word "go" fell, it was as if the highest power in the world was surging. Rumble. In the world he had created, the giant wheel of time rolled and spun rapidly. If someone could stand outside this world and watch at this moment, they would see a hair-raising scene. In the form of this world, everything was moving at an exaggerated speed. The change of time and space here was probably tens of millions of times faster than the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Life forms grew strong and healthy, but they quickly grew old and decayed into mud. Numerous mountains stretched across the land, but under the erosion of the power of time, they collapsed with a loud rumble. Rivers crisscrossed, but in the end, they couldn't resist the invasion of time and dried up, turning into deserts. Similar situations were happening everywhere in this space, and they were rapidly multiplying. Lu Xiaoyu used all his strength to make this side of the world rotate. He was the god here. His mouth contained the heavenly law, and his words were law. Everything was under his control. When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. When the entire world had developed to an extreme, Lu Xiaoyu continued to infuse energy into it, and it began to slowly go downhill. With the rapid passage of time, everything began to change. Crack, it was unknown when, but a slight sound drifted between heaven and earth. This sound was very soft and difficult to detect. It was as if a thread of a rope that was lifting a heavy load had been broken. It was insignificant. However, the reality was that not long after, an incomparably powerful creature naturally grew old, died, and disappeared from the world. This was an extremely inconceivable thing. It was hard to imagine. In the normal world, even if it was an existence in the realm of immortality, it was worthy of the saying, immortality throughout the ages, immortality throughout the ages. However, in Lu Xiaoyu's world, such a strange scene actually appeared. The realm of immortality withered, and it fell from the world. It was unimaginable. The order is broken. The laws are cracked. The end of the world is coming. In the form of the world, those sentient life forms discovered this scene. They knew that the slight sound was the great Tao's rules and order between heaven and earth showing signs of breaking. However, they were powerless to change anything. Ka. Time passed quickly. More and more sounds were heard, becoming more and more concentrated. Under Lu Xiaoyu's full power, not only did the world no longer continue to evolve and grow, but it also showed signs of withering. More powerful creatures died in the world, falling and turning into dust. Pieces of the laws and order were disintegrating. The great Tao was collapsing. The mountains, rivers, forests, and trees between heaven and earth all began to crack, collapse, dry up, and decay. Scene after scene showed a sense of desolation. Living creatures died in droves. In the situation where the rules and order between heaven and earth were disappearing, they suffered a huge impact and couldn't resist at all. Even those sentient life forms with incomparably powerful cultivation showed signs of withering, and their primordial spirits began to turn turbid. Hum hum hum. In the world, a terrifying buzzing sound was vast and mighty. It was oppressive and mournful, as if a funeral song was being played, causing the entire space to be in a state of mourning. Lu Xiaoyu sat cross-legged in the center, neither happy nor sad. His own body also began to disintegrate. That originally young and handsome face was now full of wrinkles, and the pitch-black hair behind his head had long turned white, without any luster. His aura was also weakening, and his breathing was no longer as regular as before. He was like an ordinary human, beginning to decline, and his life was coming to an end. As the creator and controller of this world, Lu Xiaoyu's power was also dissipating as this space was heading towards destruction. It could be foreseen that when this world completely disappeared, he would also completely fall and become nothingness, erased from the world, leaving not a trace behind. Probably, this is nothingness. Lu Xiaoyu muttered softly. He opened his eyes, feeling everything in the process of his own death. The functions of his body began to wildly scatter, rapidly fading away. On his face, on his body, his skin began to wither and then fall off. His flesh and blood turned into powder that rustled down. Every inch of his bones began to crack, unable to escape the fate of decay. This was the path that Lu Xiaoyu had chosen. As he experienced this process, he felt neither joy nor sorrow. Because of the loss of his strength and the death of his mortal body, he didn't feel any negative emotions. He had already expected all of this, and the reality was nearly the same as what he had imagined. To push this world to the peak and then dissipate with it, this process was extremely strange and mysterious. It caused many emotions to appear in his heart that he had never felt before. What sort of concept was nothingness? In the past, Lu Xiaoyu had never been able to understand it. Even now, he still hadn't grasped this wonderful feeling. However, after experiencing all of this, he felt that he was getting closer and closer to the end that he wanted to reach. Nothingness, that was nothing, that was emptiness, that was non-existence, that was without a trace. This was very different from the derivation and evolution of all things in the normal world. There was something very different about it. Whether it was in the 33 heavens, the 3,000 boundless worlds, or the 18 layers of hell, all things would change. Great mountains and rivers would be destroyed, turning into dust that would be blown away by strong winds and scattered throughout the world. Living beings would turn into bones, flesh and blood would turn into mud, nourishing the endless forests. Fundamentally speaking, the changes within the world itself were all within the scope of the laws and order. When matter transformed into each other, it would exist in another form in the world. It wasn't true annihilation and death. Just like when Lu Xiaoyu cultivated in his youth, the strength of the 5 elements rotated around each other, mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. But today, everything was extremely different. He would vanish together with the world that he had evolved, becoming true nothingness. A thought exists, a thought doesn't exist. I just don't know if I will return to this world in the end. Time passed quickly. Lu Xiaoyu's body had completely withered away, vanishing from sight. At the center of the world, there was only a dim and weak light that continued to flicker. Around him was a world of devastation. The living beings in it had long since died, and all matter had dissipated, turning into chaotic energy. The space had collapsed and turned into fragments, leaving only the giant wheel of time that was still madly rolling. At this time, Lu Xiaoyu couldn't help but sigh with emotion in his heart. He knew that he was about to become true nothingness with all of this, no longer existing. But he didn't know if he would be able to wake up in the end. Formless and formless, formless and formless, this was the final realm. Everything came from nothingness and went back to nothingness. If Lu Xiaoyu wanted to break through this final level, he had to break and then establish. He had to transform into nothingness and then come from nothingness. At that time, he would have a true formless body, standing at the peak of the world. However, no one could be sure that as the first expert in all the worlds who had forcefully peeked into that realm with the identity of a postnatal creature, he would succeed in the end. If he succeeded, he would be formless. If he failed, he would perish. It should be known that since ancient times, only the great god Pango, Lord Daluo, demon ancestor Rahu, and creation spirit had broken through the formless. Moreover, they were all chaotic creatures. Even those prenatal creatures who had more advantages than Lu Xiaoyu hadn't been able to do it. Wait for me. Lu Xiaoyu's primordial spirit sent out such a fluctuation. It was unknown who he was talking to. Chapter 2979. Wait for me. Lu Xiaoyu's primordial spirit emitted such a ripple, but no one could hear it. It was unknown whether it was said to the demon ancestor Rahu, or to the silent Du Xiaofu, or to his loved ones, or to the countless beings in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. His primordial spirit had been exhausted to the extreme and could no longer exist. When the fluctuation of the last 2 words was emitted, it suddenly disappeared and disappeared from the world. Around him, the world that was already broken to the extreme also dissipated after emitting a wooed sound, as if it had never appeared. Walala. After Lu Xiaoyu disappeared, another strange phenomenon appeared in the surroundings. The many stars that had been crushed by his aura and turned into dust actually reappeared, moving according to their original trajectories, as if they had not been affected at all. Lu Xiaoyu had disappeared, completely erased from the world, not even leaving behind a speck of dust. As the strongest person in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, if his death was known by countless beings, they would probably be incomparably heartbroken. However, this step was unavoidable, and he had to step on this path. The formless realm that he understood was like this, coming from nothingness and going to nothingness. However, Lu Xiaoyu himself knew that after he did this, it would not be true death. As long as he comprehended a trace of the power of nothingness, there would be a day when he would be born from nothingness and return to this mortal world. At that time, it would be the day of his formless realm. However, he himself could not be sure whether he would be able to create something from nothingness and come back to life in the end. At this time, the 33 heavens had already reached a point where the slightest sound could be heard. All the experts walked out of their own forces and gathered in the fiend god battlefield, waiting for the demon ancestors' arrival. Under the investigation of some people, they saw the chaotic cloud of fiendish and ruthless aura floating in the boundless void, its aura becoming more and more vast. Within it, a terrifying power was surging, carrying the terrifying aura of heaven punishing earth. Even though they were far away, many experts in the meditative realm felt a chill all over their bodies, almost unable to take a step forward. No one dared to get close to spy on it. At most, they could only roughly obtain some information from a distance. How are things over at Daluo Heaven and the 3,000 boundless worlds? Is there any news? An old man from the 33 heavens asked the people around him with a strong sense of melancholy. His aged face was completely solemn, and the melancholy between his brows could not be dispelled no matter how hard he tried. For the many beings, without the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, it was impossible for them to fight against the demon ancestor. If they would was heavens? Countless beings placed all their hopes on Lu Xiaoyu and Du Xiaofu. As long as one of them appeared, it would bring endless anticipation to all the experts. Not long ago, when the demon ancestor made his move, there were experts who sent people to Daluo Heaven and the 3,000 boundless worlds. On one hand, they wanted to find the whereabouts of the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyu. He could be in Daluo Heaven, or he could have returned to the 3,000 boundless worlds. On the other hand, many experts wanted to check on Du Xiaofu's situation. If the Rock Emperor could wake up, it would give all beings the confidence to fight back. We just sent people out not long ago. I'm afraid it will take some time for us to receive news. Someone beside the meditative realm expert said with a wry smile. It was no wonder that the old man was so anxious. It was impossible to send people out not long ago to bring back news immediately. However, the pressure brought by the demon ancestors' revival was too great. It did not affect the lives of a few beings, but the survival of the entire 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Let's continue to wait. If the Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds cannot be contacted, and the Yuqing Divine Emperor has not woken up, then we can only take the lead. Every moment counts. Even if the demon ancestor wants to break through the 33 heavens, he will have to get through us first. The meditative realm elder said with a sigh. When the people beside him heard this, they all fell silent. No one said anything. However, at the same time, they all nodded at the same time, indicating that they were ready. No one knew whether Lu Xiaoyu, the Lord of the 3,000 cosmos, was in the 3,000 cosmos or the Daluo Ocean. They didn't know if he had made any new arrangements in the past few thousand years, or if he knew about the devil ancestor's actions. If they could not contact him, then they could only rely on the beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds to fight for them. Even if they had to sacrifice countless lives, they had to delay the demon ancestor for as long as possible, regardless of whether it was meaningful or not. An extremely gloomy atmosphere spread among the experts of the 33 heavens, making them feel extremely depressed. Countless experts even seemed to be careful when they breathed, as if they were afraid of triggering some invisible existence. However, in such a gloomy environment, everyone's emotions were slowly being affected. From the initial panic, to the later indifference, and finally to the surging battle intent. These countless living beings were very clear that running away would not save them, nor would they be able to save their own race, relatives, and friends. Since that was the case, then let's fight. Divine Martial World, Daluo Heaven. The experts sent by the 33 heavens had already arrived. Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taishian, Yanghua, Lu Xintong, Lu Jingyun, Long Ke, and other experts had all come out of seclusion at the same time. After hearing the news of the demon ancestors' movements, their expressions became extremely solemn. After thousands of years, the demon ancestor actually made a move at this time. Xiaolong frowned and said in a deep voice. All of them were gathered in a large hall in the desolate country. The other experts of the desolate country had already tacitly allowed this group of people to treat this place as their own home. When discussing important matters, Yi Wuming, Murong Yurua, and the others would not always be by their side. It was also because of this that when the news of the 33 heavens came, Xiaolong immediately told everyone not to be too loud. Only a few people in the desolate country knew about it. This was because the countless living beings in divine martial world were still at a critical juncture of breaking through. He did not want to rashly interrupt their cultivation. Uncle Xiaolong, let's go to the 33 heavens and prepare for battle. Lu Jingyun stepped forward and looked at Xiaolong with a burning gaze. In the absence of Lu Xiaoyu, everyone naturally followed Xiaolong's lead and listened to his arrangements. Since the demon ancestor had made a move, they naturally had to attack. In these past few years, none of them had made any huge breakthroughs. At most, their strength could be considered to have improved compared to thousands of years ago. However, in the face of life and death, none of this was important. All right, I'll go to Earth to find Boss. You guys meet up in the Divine Devil battlefield. At this time, most of the experts of the 33 heavens should have gathered. When I find Boss, I'll immediately rush back. Xiaolong nodded and said with a serious expression. At this time, his heart was incomparably heavy. Boss had gone to Earth to break through to the enchanting realm, and he did not know what the result was. Xiaolong didn't know much about such a realm, but he understood one thing. Breaking through between realms was definitely not an easy matter. Moreover, the enchanting realm was the last realm of the 33 heavens' 9 great realms. Since ancient times, only those gods and devils that walked out of the primal chaos had such a cultivation. Boss was a post-celestial life form, and there was a sentient life form between him and the ancient gods and devils. If he wanted to accomplish such a feat, it would be extremely difficult. He had always been worried about what would happen if Boss failed. But at the same time, Xiaolong's heart was filled with the deepest expectations and confidence. This was not related to anything else, but simply confidence in Boss Lu Xiaoyu. In his heart, there was nothing that Boss could not do. Since that's the case, then let's move out immediately. Don't waste any more time. Next to Xiaolong, Dibatian opened his mouth and said to everyone. Several powerhouses from the 33 heavens were also listening, but they did not know what kind of place Earth was. Could it be another terrifying great world? And what shocked them was that the master of the 3,000 great worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, had actually gone to break through to the enchanting realm. However, they did not ask for details. Let's go, Xiaolong directly called out, and his figure rose into the air, rushing out of the hall and disappearing in a flash. But then, his words condensed into a few lines and transmitted into the ears of several people in the desolate country. Don't spread the news about the demon ancestor for now. Let the beings of Shun Wu world cultivate in peace. We'll make a decision after we hear from them. The few people he transmitted his voice to were the powerhouses of the desolate country who knew about the outside world, such as Yi Wuming and Murong Yurua. Xiaolong didn't want to interrupt the cultivation of all the living beings in Shan Wu world at this time. Furthermore, Du Xiaofu was still in a deep slumber. No one knew what kind of effect Shin Wu world's actions would have on him. This was a risk Xiaolong did not dare to take. Let's go. Then, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, Lu Xintong, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, and a few other powerhouses from the 33 heavens all quickly rose into the air and left this world. The Demon Ancestors movement did not have much of an impact on Shinwu world, but the powerhouses from the 3,000 great worlds quickly left this world, leaving only Yu Yuqian. Even the Holy Great Emperor and Duanmu Chengtian had gone to the 33 heavens. However, all of this was suppressed by Yi Wuming, Murong Yurua, and the others, and not many people knew about it. Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoba, Du Xiaolin, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, Jialo Jueyu, Jin Xingchun, Yi Piaoling, Little Xingxing, and other powerhouses were still in seclusion, and their results were good. As time passed, there were dozens of people in this world who had reached the peak of the immortal realm, and were only one step away from breaking through the threshold of the meditative realm. It had to be said that this was an extremely shocking thing. In the past, the lords of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds would break through so quickly that it was unbelievable. These people had only cultivated for a little over 10,000 years. However, in this day and age, everyone wanted to have as many strong people as possible. The meditative realm? If it was in the past, how powerful would that be? It's a pity that in this era, the demon ancestor is about to come into being. Other than the powerhouses of the enchanting realm, who can stop him? Eldery sighed deeply. He had heard about the current situation of Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, and the others from Lu Jingyun and the others. Great changes had taken place in Shenwu world, but the strange thing was that people like Little Xingxing, Du Xiaojing, and Du Xiaoyao had reached the peak of the immortal realm in their early years, but they were still unable to break through the meditative realm. Until now, when Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoba, and the other powerhouses had caught up, they were still stuck at the final juncture. Perhaps this was because the world had yet to be perfected, or perhaps some kind of law and order had not reached a sufficient level, causing many powerhouses to be blocked from breaking through. It's been so many years. I wonder how Xiaofu is doing. Murong Yurua's beautiful brows carried a trace of worry, and her bright eyes unconsciously looked in the direction of the Du family's ancestral hall. For thousands of years, there had been no movement from there. The Lord of the 3,000 Great Worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, had been in closed-door cultivation in recent years, so no one knew how Du Xiaofu was doing. Countless people could be said to be waiting for Du Xiaofu to wake up, because in this world, only Du Xiaofu alone could completely kill Luo Ho. Sigh, under Murong Yurua's perception, outside the Du family's ancestral hall, that old figure was sitting on the steps next to it. Many people were already used to this scene. That old figure was Yu Yuqian, the master Du Xiaofu had acknowledged not long after he had arrived in the 33 heavens. Everyone was anxious about Du Xiaofu's situation, but when Yu Yuqian came to talk to him, he couldn't suppress the anxiety in his heart. Xiaofu, my disciple. Yu Yuqian's eyes were already a little turbid. He looked at the tightly closed ancestral hall door and called out softly. After that, Yangming kept muttering, but it was unclear what he was saying. It was as if he was reciting a scripture. The old man had lived an extremely torturous life for the past thousands of years. Especially in recent years, he was even more worried than when he was just waiting for Du Xiaofu to wake up. Many people didn't know that Lu Xiaoyu had gone to Earth for seclusion, but he knew very well. Under such circumstances, Du Xiaofu and Lu Xiaoyu were both on his mind. On one hand, Yu Yuqian was worried about Du Xiaofu, but on the other hand, he was afraid that something would happen to Lu Xiaoyu's breakthrough. These two disciples were his pride in the past, the reason why he could do whatever he wanted in the various great worlds. But when it came to a critical moment, the old man was indeed one of the most anxious people. Whether it was Du Xiaofu or Lu Xiaoyu, he didn't want anything to happen to either of them. If possible, Yu Yuqian was willing to use his life in exchange for their safety. Unfortunately, even if it was such an extreme idea, it was only his wishful thinking. Sigh. After a long time, Yu Yuqian let out a long sigh again. It was as if after this sigh, his appearance had aged by dozens of years again. He was full of melancholy and confusion. In fact, in a place where he couldn't see, in the Du family's ancestral hall, a huge change was taking place in the stone coffin at this time. The light cocoon that Lu Xiaoyu had set up around Du Xiaofu was still emitting a bright light at this time, illuminating the dark interior of the stone coffin with a clear and bright light. However, its overall shape was smaller than before. At this time, the entire stone coffin showed a huge difference from before. One could only see mysterious patterns climbing on it, like small snakes swimming around, possessing an extremely mysterious power. These fine patterns were very strange. It seemed to be able to attract some kind of special fluctuation between heaven and earth, gather it here, and then produce a mysterious and unpredictable power that was transmitted into the interior of the stone coffin. Chi chi chi. Terrifying power spurted out from the stone walls of the stone coffin like electric arcs. It was also like a snake's tongue, kissing the light cocoon around Du Xiaofu, making a slight qi-la sound. Although the two kinds of power did not have a hostile relationship, there was still a lot of consumption between them. It was because of this that the light cocoon that Lu Xiaoyu had set up was visibly decreasing. Inside the light cocoon, Du Xiaofu's remaining vitality was also vibrating at a very high frequency. It was no longer like in the early years, when it only changed once every few hundred years. Now, Du Xiaofu's remaining strength was almost jumping every breath, as if it was really breathing. Accompanied by this scene, the blood-red aura that wrapped around Du Xiaofu's body, which was the demon ancestor's chaos origin power, was bounced up again and again. It looked like Du Xiaofu was trying to break free from it and shake it off. However, although there was not much chaos origin power left, it was still very frightening. It was tightly wrapped around Du Xiaofu's vitality. At the same time, it was also resisting the erosion of the power that Lu Xiaoyu had left behind. Qi-la-la. In such a situation, the patterns that had climbed down from the stone coffin drilled in bit by bit and connected with Du Xiaofu's power, causing it to slowly grow stronger. This process was very slight. According to the current situation, it would take a lot of time to break through the current balance. But after all, it had been going on without stopping, and it was becoming more and more violent, with a tendency to become more and more intense. If Lu Xiaofu had not turned into nothingness, but had returned at this time and entered the ancestral shrine of the Du family to explore, he would have been pleasantly surprised by Du Xiaofu's change. His remaining consciousness was actually beginning to instinctively resist the demon ancestor's chaos origin power. This seemed to be a good sign. Chapter 2980. The changes that happened to Du Xiaofu on the stone coffin were not without reason. All the living beings in Shen Wu world were saddened by the death of the Rock Emperor. However, this sadness became the greatest source of strength, causing them to cultivate wholeheartedly and strive for a breakthrough. Everyone seemed to be certain that the Rock Emperor would eventually awaken. At that time, they hoped that they would have enough strength to follow behind him again, just like how they fought against the devil religion in the future. Under these circumstances, many living beings in this world were cultivating at the same time, creating an invisible resonance that affected the order and laws of heaven and earth, forming a special power. Although Du Xiaofu's consciousness was no longer there, the last strand of vitality he had was still closely related to the great overarching heaven and earth energy, inseparable. Thus, under the radiation of the layers of mysterious energy, Du Xiaofu's last strand of vitality began to vibrate. As time passed, the vibrations became more and more frequent, reaching a frequency similar to breathing. However, even so, it seemed that something was still missing, something that could truly stimulate Du Xiaofu's strength and mobilize the heaven and earth energy to refine the strand of chaos origin energy that wrapped around his body. One could imagine that if that day really came, Du Xiaofu's recovery would be as easy as water flowing through a canal. But now, it seemed that he still lacked that bit of opportunity. If he couldn't reach it, who knew how long it would take for him to truly recover? Earth. During the warm spring season, the entire world was bursting with vitality, as if it had been reborn, exuding the aura of life everywhere. The streets were filled with people, shuttling back and forth like shuttles. On the bustling street, a young man dressed in a completely different way from this world walked slowly, attracting the gazes of the passers-by. This young man's long hair was scattered behind his head, and he wore a golden robe. His face was extraordinarily handsome, but at this moment, there was a deep sense of worry. Where is boss? The young man ignored the strange gazes of the people around him, only silently calling out in his heart. This young man was naturally Xiaolong from Shenwu world. He had come to Earth to find the old continent's Xiaoyu and bring him news of the demon ancestor. However, Xiaolong couldn't find any trace of his boss even after searching for a long time. A small world like Earth could easily be completely covered by the power of his primordial spirit. There wouldn't even be any blind spots. But even so, Xiaolong was still unable to find Lu Xiaoyou's whereabouts, which made him feel anxious. As Lu Xiaoyou's closest brother, Xiaolong was naturally able to guess that this process would be fraught with danger. He did not have to summon Lu Xiaoyu out of seclusion, but at the very least, he wanted to leave a message there. Regardless of whether he succeeded or failed in his breakthrough, he would be the first to know what Demon Alpha was up to. Of course, with Boss's cultivation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to hide from him without leaving any traces behind. However, Xiaolong felt that Boss would never do that. Could something have happened to Boss? Xiaolong muttered. When he thought of this, his expression suddenly froze, and his heart sank. This wasn't impossible. For the highest level of the 33 Heavens' 9 great realms, they couldn't see the scenery there at all. If one wanted to break through the path-bearing realm and stand at the peak, no one knew what kind of dangers there would be. If something had happened to Lu Xiaoyu in the process of breaking through, there was indeed a high possibility that something had happened. However, Xiaolong fiercely shook his head again. He didn't dare to imagine such an outcome, but this time, he couldn't find any trace of his boss, which made him very worried. Let's return to the Fiend God battlefield first. Xiaolong thought for a moment, then opened his eyes again and scanned the bustling crowd. In the end, he whispered with some disappointment. Then, his silhouette shot up into the sky. Before countless people's shocked gazes, he shot up into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. "Boss, you have to come back soon." These words reverberated throughout the entire earth, reaching the ears of every living being. This was a message left behind by Xiaolong with his own cultivation. If Lu Xiaoyu could break out of seclusion, he would definitely hear it. However, in the eyes of the mortals on earth who didn't have any cultivation, such an action was like a miracle. The action of going against the sky, coupled with the words that could be heard throughout the world, quickly caused this world to boil over. However, Xiaolong didn't care about this at all. Now that the demon ancestor was about to return, if his boss didn't come back, Earth wouldn't be able to continue to survive. Under the demon ancestor's bloody methods, all living things would be plunged into misery and suffering. Xiaolong left Earth and traveled all the way to the original location of the 18 layers of hell. What he didn't know was that at this time, Lu Xiaoyu had already turned into nothingness, leaving no trace of his existence in this world, not even a speck of dust. No one could say whether Lu Xiaoyu could finally awaken and achieve a true formless body. Time is getting more and more pressing. In the endless starry sky, countless powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds floated in the void, their bodies emitting powerful fluctuations. However, under the gathering of these countless powerhouses, there was an undissolvable worry between their brows. Under their gazes, in the distance, there was a blood-colored mass of chaotic light that was incomparably huge, expanding at every moment. Everyone knew that it was the place where the demon ancestor, Rahu, stood. At this time, he was rapidly recovering inside. Through the terrifying aura emitted by the mass of chaotic light, one could feel the changes in the demon ancestor's current strength. It had definitely reached a terrifying level. For many of the powerhouses present, even if they were far away, they would feel suffocated and flustered under the impact of the terrifying fluctuations. If they were any closer, they would probably die in an instant. As a divine demon that had walked out of the primordial chaos, the demon ancestor's strength was simply too terrifying. Even the power that he naturally emitted was enough to look down on countless living things like ants. When the demon ancestor breaks out of that mass of chaos, he will definitely carry out a massacre. There's not much time left for us. A powerhouse frowned and said in an incomparably serious manner. Countless armies of the demon clan had already been destroyed, and only the demon ancestor was left. However, this person was thousands of times more terrifying than the countless demon clan members. Even without the countless demon clan members, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would not be able to survive. They would definitely become demon realms, and all living things would die miserably at the hands of the demon ancestor. In the absence of a supreme powerhouse, all of them together would not be able to stop Raha's massacre. Countless powerhouses fell into silence, and the heavy feeling in their hearts was indescribable. They were not afraid of death, and they were all prepared to sacrifice themselves. However, if they died without any meaning, they would probably not be able to rest in peace in the netherworld. The dragon god is back. Just as many people were feeling gloomy, they suddenly heard a person cry out. Immediately after, the surrounding void suddenly opened, and the figure of a young man in golden clothes walked out. This figure was Xiaolong, who had rushed back from Earth. Seeing his appearance, a large number of figures instantly swarmed forward and surrounded him. Dibatian, Donghuang Taixin, Yanghua, Lu Xintong, Lu Jingyun, and other powerhouses were all in this group. In addition, there were many powerhouses from the 33 heavens. They all looked at Xiaolong with longing eyes, and someone even asked anxiously, "Dragon God, how is the situation?" Everyone's eyes were filled with eagerness, and they wanted to hear the good news that the young man in golden clothes had brought. After the powerhouses of the 3,000 boundless worlds rushed to the fiend god battlefield, the people of the 33 heavens finally found out that the lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, had left Daluotian many years ago and went to a place called Earth to cultivate in seclusion to break through to the phenomenal realm. After receiving news of the demon ancestors' movements, the dragon god immediately set off to Earth to find Lu Xiaoyu. Their hearts were filled with strong hope. If the lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, successfully broke through to the phenomenal realm, then he would have the power to fight against the demon ancestor. Even if he could not kill him, at least he would be able to stand on the same level as him. However, under everyone's gaze, Xiaolong's brows were tightly knitted, and he did not immediately speak. Xiaolong, Xiaoyu, Dibatian was a little anxious, but he had a faint bad feeling in his heart, and he had a bad premonition. However, he could not help but have such doubts, and in the end, he still asked. This was a question that everyone was concerned about. Lu Xiaoyu's situation was related to the life and death of all the beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. "I didn't find boss." Xiaolong frowned, exhaled, and said softly. He did not want to hide anything, but looking at the eyes of the people around him, he did not tell them the details of the situation he had sensed. Instead, he thought for a while and said, "Boss should still be in seclusion and is at a critical juncture. He can't be disturbed." So he deliberately hid his tracks. Many people heard this and sighed slightly. Although Lu Xiaoyu did not appear immediately, if he was still in seclusion, it meant that there was still hope. For many powerhouses, they did not know if breaking through to the phenomenal realm would be accompanied by great danger. So Lu Xiaoyu's safety became the deepest concern in their hearts. At this time, when they heard the dragon god's words, they felt a little relieved. Naturally, given Lu Xiaoyu's carrier realm cultivation, if he deliberately hid himself, no one in this world would be able to find him. Even an existence like the dragon god wouldn't be able to do so, unless the demon ancestor personally acted. However, others did not know that Xiaolong had actually said this deliberately. He always felt that he had to give everyone some hope, because he himself was not sure what kind of state boss was in at this time. The demon ancestor was about to appear, and at this critical moment, if the hearts of all living beings were scattered, it would be even more terrifying. It's good to give everyone some hope. It was just that most people did not understand the meaning of Xiaolong's words, but Lu Xintong, Yanghua, Lu Jingyun, and the others understood Xiaolong very well and knew that the situation was not as optimistic as he said. After the group of people privately communicated with each other, they finally confirmed that Lu Xiaoyu's whereabouts were really unknown. Most importantly, Xiaolong did not know whether Lu Xiaoyu was in the process of breaking through or had already met with an accident because of the breakthrough. This kind of news was like a huge mountain that pressed down on everyone's hearts. It was extremely heavy. Continue to pay attention to the demon ancestor's movements. If nothing happens on boss's side, I believe he will definitely appear in time. The countless living beings in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds are all counting on him. Xiaolong's words were deep as he said so. Dibatian, Donghuang Taixin, Yanghua, Lu Xintong, Lu Jingyun, and the others beside him all nodded. If Xiaoyu and that brat Du Xiaofu can safely get through this crisis, then there's really hope. While everyone was solemn, Yanghua sighed softly and said so. Many people agreed with this statement, and all of them fell silent. Lu Xiaoyu had broken through to the emptiness realm and was at the same level as the demon ancestor. Du Xiaofu had recovered his strength and would most likely be able to break through to the Wayless realm in one fell swoop. Under such circumstances, if the two of them joined forces to deal with the demon ancestor, the scene would be the same as before. It could almost be said that victory was in their hands. The demon ancestor was powerful, but with Lu Xiaoyu, who was in the immortal realm, there was not much of an advantage. Rahu's undying body was completely useless in front of Du Xiaofu. If that was the case, then the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds could really be said to have won. However, they all knew that this was just a beautiful dream. It was hard to believe that it would become reality. Putting aside whether or not Lu Xiaoyu could successfully break through to the immortal realm, Du Xiaofu had not made any big movements in Shenwu world at this moment. Therefore, everyone felt that it would be very difficult to gain an absolute advantage over the demon ancestor. However, thinking about it carefully, it was still possible. Suddenly, Xiaolong's expression froze, and he could not help but look into the distance. That was where the demon ancestor, Rahu, lived. At this moment, above the blood-red primal chaos origin, waves of pitch-black gas appeared and turned into black dragons. They roared in the void and crazily twisted their bodies. These black dragons were extremely thick and strong. Their auras were powerful, and they danced with endless terrifying energy. They left the primal chaos origin and rushed towards the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds as if they were going to devour them. It was incomparably terrifying. Rumble. Following the appearance of these black dragons, the blood-red primal chaos origin began to roll violently. Primal chaos chi shot out violently, and a terrifying energy was released. Many people in the distance felt their energy being suppressed, and it was difficult to resist. The demon ancestor is about to appear. Looking at this scene, Xiaolong's tone was deep and solemn as he spoke. In fact, there was no need for him to say anything. Everyone could already guess what was going to happen. The black dragons formed by demonic energy must have leapt out from the demon ancestor's body. The power they carried was quite powerful. Each black dragon was no less than a meditative realm powerhouse. Besides that, the chaos quintessence that had been maintaining its balance while causing a huge commotion had actually started to split apart at this moment. It was as if a terrifying lord was being nurtured within it, and it was about to be born. Obviously, the demon ancestor's strength had recovered to its peak and would soon return to the world. "Prepare for battle," an expert shouted, almost roaring out loud. All the powerhouses of the 33 heavens immediately tensed up. Everyone held their weapons in their hands and focused on the changes in the blood-red primal chaos origin. No one could remain calm at this moment. After all, the powerhouse they were about to face was the demon ancestor. This was an existence with the formless body, the powerhouse who had created the demon world, the terrifying lord who had turned the entire ancient era upside down, the one who had caused heavenly Lord Daluo to fall in the world, and the one who had caused great god Pango to dim for countless years. With such a powerhouse, it was impossible for the beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds not to feel fear. Before we die, we will not allow the demon ancestor to take half a step into the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. An old man in the meditative realm said loudly. His chi flowed out like flowing water. Around him, the power of the great Tao origin appeared, condensing into the shape of a world. He had used all his strength to prepare for battle. At this moment, everyone had the same thought. But at the same time, although no one said it out loud, their hearts were incomparably clear of a fact. If the demon ancestor, Rahu, were to completely ignore them and instead directly charge into the 33 heavens or the 3,000 boundless worlds to slaughter them, with their strength, how could they stop him? The so-called "before we die, we will not allow the demon ancestor to take half a step into the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds was probably just self-comforting words. Rumble. Amidst the heavens, the primal chaos origin in the distance began to churn more violently. Layers of blood-red light broke through the barriers of space and pierced into the eyes of countless beings, causing them to feel an inexplicable sense of grief and despair. Hee 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 hee. Suddenly, a cold laughter sounded from afar, causing all the beings who heard this voice to feel a chill in their hearts. Under many gazes, The primal chaos origin in the distance broke open with a puff, and a furry claw stretched out from it. This claw was incomparably sharp, and the tufts of hair were long and slender. They were scarlet red as if they were dyed in blood, and they contained an unimaginable bloody and murderous aura. Chila. In the next moment, another sound like silk being torn could be heard. The other claw stretched out and suddenly tore, tearing open a terrifying gap in the blood-red primal chaos origin. The demon ancestor is here. Looking at this scene, the little dragon licked his dry lips and whispered softly. Chapter 2981. All living beings fell silent. No one made a sound. Everyone stood in the void like wooden statues. In their eyes, there was only the scene in the distance. They saw the demon ancestor's two claws reach out from the chaotic aura and tear it apart. Rumble. Terrifying primal chaos fragments shot out, surging into the air. It was as if a snowstorm had descended, magnificent, gorgeous, and magnificent. However, in the middle of this scene stood a figure. His figure was strangely majestic, no less than 10 million feet tall. On the figure's body, clusters of blood-red hair fluttered wantonly. It was as if it was made of blood splashed on ink, releasing an unparalleled bloody aura. Such a figure, just by standing there, seemed to be enough to suppress the entire world. It had an unimaginable aura. Demon ancestor. Finally, an expert could not help but feel his throat go dry and said softly. When everyone saw the demon ancestor's figure, their bodies tensed up. Their hearts were in their throats. Their hearts beat fiercely against their chests, making a sound like muffled drums. Countless people from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 upper-class worlds had gathered in this starry sky for a long time. They had been paying attention to the demon ancestor's movements. Today, the terrifying existence that had massacred the entire ancient era had finally revealed his true body. Even though they had long been mentally prepared, when this moment really came, no living being could remain calm. The demon ancestor's strength was too deeply rooted in their hearts. Few, in the distance, after breaking through the chaotic light, the demon ancestor's figure appeared. He stood in place and did not do anything for a while. He exhaled a long breath and then suddenly inhaled again. Chi. In the surrounding void, a terrifying vortex suddenly appeared. The vortex's power was extremely strong. It actually tore the boundless area into pieces and turned it into chaos. Under the demon ancestor's devouring, all the chaos swirled and went into his mouth. Even the chaotic energy that had originally surrounded him and exploded was sucked into his mouth and swallowed into his stomach. Rumble. At this moment, the 33 heavens, which were not too far away, began to tremble. It was as if they were about to collapse under this power and be devoured by the demon ancestor. The boundless starry sky and the surroundings trembled and shook violently. Fortunately, Lu Xiaoyu had set up a scary formation in the infinite system. Therefore, it was not torn apart by the demon alpha's power. The fiend ancestor's power is still increasing. Xiaolong's face involuntarily darkened when he sensed this scene as he softly said. He was not the only one. Many living beings could clearly feel that after the demon alpha devoured the chaotic aura around her, her power continued to rise. Although this kind of rise was not particularly intense, it was still terrifying enough. Such a scene caused many living beings to feel a sense of despair. The ancestral devil Rahu was truly too formidable. Even though they'd expected this in their hearts, they still couldn't help but be astounded to the extreme when they witnessed it with their own eyes. The terrifying demonic body that stood in the void naturally exuded a power that made countless people feel like they were no match for it. This was not a crushing defeat in the ordinary sense. It was even comparable to the difference between the heavenly path and an ant. Relatively speaking, living beings like them were no different from ants in front of the demon ancestor. At this moment, countless living beings felt that their souls were about to be sucked into the demon ancestor's mouth as he swallowed the chaotic aura. Set up the formation and prepare to fight against the demon ancestor. Xiaolong looked at the people around him and suddenly roared. His roar reverberated through the 9 heavens and shook the universe. He was completely roaring, awakening everyone from their palpitations. Puffed, puffed. Amidst Xiaolong's terrifying roar, many living beings spat out a mouthful of blood. Their faces immediately paled as they suffered a certain degree of injury. Fortunately, with this roar, everyone was no longer in a trance and broke free from the demon ancestor's terrifying power. At this time, Xiaolong did not care too much. He did not want to see many people die before they could truly fight the demon ancestor. Set up the formation. After waking up, the people of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds finally realized what they had to do next. They no longer looked in the direction of the demon ancestor to avoid losing their minds again. One by one, figures shuttled through the void, releasing energy fluctuations from their bodies. They intertwined with each other and formed a terrifying formation. Each formation was set up by at least hundreds of thousands of cultivators working together. It could be said to be extremely powerful. They blocked the entrance to the divine demon battlefield and waited quietly. They were waiting for the demon ancestor to attack. Boss. Xiaofu boy. Xiaolong murmured. Xiaolong muttered as he felt an endless sense of helplessness in his heart. The power that naturally exuded from the demon ancestor's body was already extremely terrifying. Looking at the formations formed by the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, they seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. Once the demon ancestor started to kill, these people would be no different from sending themselves to their deaths. How he wished that Lu Xiaoyu and Du Xiaofu could rush over at this time and start a real battle with the demon ancestor. If that was really the case, even if many people died here, it would be worth it. Tisk, tsk, tisk. No one spoke again. Everyone was waiting for the demon ancestor to attack. They were prepared to die so that they could buy more time for the weak beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. If in this short period of time, Lu Xiaoyu, the lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds, could come out of seclusion, and the rock emperor, Du Xiaofu, could break through the deadlock and join forces to defeat the demon ancestor, then all of their words would be meaningful. In the boundless star field, a place very far away from Earth, on a desolate star, there was sand everywhere. There was no sign of life at all. Here, the 4 primordial laws lacked the power of the law of life. Time, space, and matter were all present. However, if any living being could come here, they would be able to conclude one thing. Such a world would definitely not exist for long. The withering of the law of life would cause the other 3 primordial laws to decline and degenerate. There would come a day when all these withered stars would completely perish and turn into dust. In the eyes of a powerhouse like Lu Xiaoyu, the final fate of these stars would not be as simple as turning into dust. According to the evolution of the world, such a world would eventually turn into nothingness. Not even a speck of dust would be left. The reason for such a change in the countless stars in the starry sky was that terrifying battle in ancient times. Back then, in order to suppress the 18 primordial spirits of the demon ancestor, the great god Pangu used countless fragments of the Pangu world to set up this terrifying array, suppressing the demon ancestor in the 18 layers of hell for eternity. The power of these shattered worlds was completely consumed in the operation of the array, resulting in the current situation. They turned into lifeless stars. Not long ago, after Lu Xiaoyu left Earth, he came to a place in this star field to comprehend the existence of nothingness. After his body turned into nothingness and disappeared, everything reappeared and returned to its original appearance. Nothing seemed to have changed at all. However, on this day, a very small star suddenly emitted some fluctuations. Circles of ripples spread out from the void, looking like a small stone thrown into a calm water surface. The ripples gently spread out. With the appearance of such a situation, it seemed to have caused a chain reaction. The entire star trembled slightly, and as time passed, the power of the tremors grew stronger and stronger. The range of the tremors also expanded rapidly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The invisible power fluctuated, and suddenly, it seemed that some mysterious thing was born from nothingness. It was extremely strange. Sure enough, not long after, a mass of chaotic light suddenly appeared and bloomed in the void. It was as if a scorching sun had appeared out of thin air, radiating light in all directions. The appearance of this chaotic light was extremely abrupt, as if it had appeared out of thin air. It appeared inexplicably. After it appeared, the color of the light began to change. From the initial single color, it turned into a 5-colored light, dazzling and gorgeous. Moreover, the volume of the entire chaotic light was constantly expanding. In an instant, it enveloped the entire star. It seemed as if some life was being nurtured within it, slowly awakening. Divine martial world, Daluocean. The creatures of this world were not greatly affected by the demon ancestors' awakening. Most of the powerhouses were still in seclusion, working hard to break through to a higher realm. However, paper could not contain fire. The news of the demon ancestor spread in a small area, causing many people to become extremely anxious. Iwuming, Murong Yurua, and the others were like ants on a hot pan, anxiously running around in circles. They had thought of calling Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, and the others out of seclusion, but they did not do so. Many people in this world were at the critical moment of breaking through. Little Xingxing, Du Yunlong, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, Jialo Jueyu, Yi Piaoling, Changguyu, and some other experts of other forces were at the peak of a mortal realm. They were only one step away from the true meditative realm. At this moment, if they were forcefully disturbed, no one knew what the consequences would be. However, it was strange that people like Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and Du Xiaojing had reached the peak of a mortal realm in their early years. They had truly reached the peak of a mortal realm. No matter if it's in terms of talent or comprehension, these people shouldn't be stuck here for such a long time. Plus, Shenwu world was blessed by the heavens, so it wouldn't be hard for a meditative powerhouse to appear. However, the reality was that there were dozens, or even hundreds of experts in the divine martial world who were stuck at this juncture. It was difficult for them to truly step into that new world. It was really surprising. On the other hand, the people of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds had already gone to the outside world to fight against the demon ancestor. However, their rock emperor, Du Xiaofu, had not caused any commotion even after several thousand years. It was really worrying. Different from Yi Wuming, Murong Yurua, and the others, although Yu Yuqian was anxious, he was not worried about the demon ancestor. All his thoughts were on Lu Xiaoyu and Du Xiaofu. He only hoped that his 2 disciples would be fine. As usual, the old man would often sit on the steps outside the Du family's ancestral hall and wait quietly. From time to time, he would glance at the closed door as if he was waiting for a miracle to happen. After so many years, his expectations had been met with disappointment time and time again. However, it could not truly extinguish the eagerness in his heart. It could not truly disappoint him. In Yu Yuqian's heart, his 2 disciples weren't ordinary people. Given their abilities, they would definitely recover one day. However, this still couldn't stop him from worrying. The most important thing was that the demon ancestor had really awakened. He did not know if Xiaolong, Dibatian, Lu Jingyun, and the others had already faced him head-on. Were the countless people in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds still alive? Yu Yuqian did not know these things. However, these were not the only things he did not know. Yu Yuqian also did not know about the changes in the stone coffin in the Du family's ancestral hall. In recent years, Du Xiaofu's wisp of vitality had been constantly vibrating under the influence of the power of the entire world. He had borrowed the invisible power to instinctively resist the demon ancestor's chaos origin power. At this moment, the cocoon of light that Lu Xiaoyu had set up around his body had completely dissipated. Not a single bit of it remained. The fine patterns on the stone coffin were like ferocious little snakes spitting out their tongues. They intertwined with lightning-like rays of light and struck the demon ancestor's chaos origin power. This was a very slow process. However, after such a long time, the blood-colored chaos origin power had dimmed quite a bit. Its power was also somewhat lost. Du Xiaofu's wisp of vitality was also much stronger than before. He no longer needed Lu Xiaoyu's power to assist him. He alone was enough to deal with it. However, It was unknown when his instinctive consciousness would be able to break the balance and break free from the shackles. He would be able to completely destroy the demon ancestors' chaos origin power and be reborn into the mortal world. All of this happened so quietly. It was firmly bound within the range of the stone coffin. Moreover, under the isolation of Lu Xiaoyu's array, no one in the outside world knew about it. Wang, suddenly, when Du Xiaofu's wisp of vitality collided with the demon ancestor's chaos origin power, it suddenly emitted a strange fluctuation. It twisted a little, as if it was alive. Such a movement, compared to the past, was a very obvious change. If Du Xiaofu's wisp of vitality vibrated many years ago, it was from nothing to something. Then the change today was from weak to strong. However, after this change happened once, it immediately quieted down. No one knew when the next movement would occur. At the original location of the 18 levels of Hell, Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong were in the lead. They faced the demon ancestor directly. Behind them, the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds formed an array formation. They emitted ferocious fluctuations of strength and were abnormally terrifying. In the past, each array formation would have been enough to sweep away a great world of the 33 heavens. However, at this time, no one felt that this power was very strong. It was because in the distance, there was a terrifying blood-red figure standing there. It was the demon ancestor. Around the demon ancestor, all of the shattered chaos energy was sucked into his stomach and turned into his own power. Kikik, this ancestor has returned. Who can stop me in this world? Pango, Heavenly Lord Daluo, even if you do everything you can, you still won't be able to kill me. Among the 3,000 fiend gods in the chaos, only this ancestor can see through the ultimate secret and lead all living beings to a path of survival. Kikik, feeling the power in his body, the demon ancestor couldn't help but clench his fists. This was his peak state. He hadn't felt so powerful for many years. In the battle with Pangu and Heavenly Lord Daluo, his physical body and primordial spirit were separated and suppressed in the Daluo heaven and the 18 levels of hell. Now that he had returned, he no longer had those two terrifying experts. This time, there was no one in the world who could match him. Lu Xiaoyu, Du Xiaofu, with just the two of you, you think you can fight against this ancestor? Compared to Pangu and Heavenly Lord Daluo, what virtue and ability do you have to be of use? The demon ancestor laughed arrogantly. His scarlet eyes were filled with a strong sense of contempt and mockery. After laughing for a while, the demon ancestor's expression suddenly froze. He muttered to himself, Pangu, this ancestor knows that you're not dead. After I destroy this world of yours, I'll go and find you. Of course, there's also the 3,000 great thousand worlds. Creation spirit, if I'm not wrong, that's the world you created. Kikik. In the distance, Xiaolong and the others listened to the demon ancestor's laughter. Their expressions were extremely serious. Just the waves of terrifying laughter caused the blood in their bodies to churn. Their physical bodies and primordial spirits looked like they were about to collapse. Countless living beings. If they hadn't joined forces to form a formation, more than half of them would have died after the laughter. Despite the demon alpha's ferocious power, he did not even look at them. That tall demonic body stood quietly in the void. It was like an unparalleled existence that had existed since ancient times. With a move, the world would collapse. Lu Xiaoyu, are you hiding? After a long time, the demon ancestor finally recovered from the joy of his strength recovering. With a sweep of his primordial spirit, he was surprised to find that Lu Xiaoyu wasn't in the crowd opposite him. Chapter 2982. The demon ancestor, Rahu, had finally recovered. His strength had returned to its peak state, no different from the ancient times. After feeling the joy brought about by the return of his strength, he naturally wanted to kill many of his old enemies in the past. Among them, Du Xiaofu and Lu Xiaoyu were the first to bear the brunt of this. In the entire 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, there were only two powerhouses left who could barely be considered worthy of being mentioned. Of course, the demon ancestor believed that Du Xiaofu had died under his attack, so the only one left who he felt hatred for was Lu Xiaoyu. However, after his gaze swept across the many powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, Rahu was surprised to find that he did not see Lu Xiaoyu's figure. This gave him a strange feeling. He had interacted with Lu Xiaoyu many times, so the demon ancestor had some understanding of his personality. He was definitely not someone who would run away in the face of danger. Although his words carried a deep sense of mockery, it was limited to mockery. Facing the demon ancestor, Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yang Guo, and Lu Xintong did not speak. They were already extremely nervous. This was an existence that could penetrate the heavens and the earth. With just the few of them, there was no way they could stop him. Even so, they had to block him and buy more time, even if it was just for a few breaths. Even if the demon ancestor was undefeatable, they could not just wait for death. Boom, boom. Suddenly, the demon ancestor began to walk in the void. Every step he took produced a terrifying roar. The space seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. The countless experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds trembled violently, even though they were connected by the formation. They were about to tumble away in the void. Not only that, but as the demon ancestor approached step by step, there was a boundless ferocious power rolling over. Invisible waves swept out like a gale, as if they wanted to crush the formations into nothingness. All of a sudden, a terrifying scarlet light soared up and spread out endlessly. In the distant 33 heavens, a rich demonic energy began to tumble about. There was also a lingering smell of blood, causing many life forms to feel a bone-chilling cold. This was the might of the fiend ancestor. The power that emanated from his body could make all the worlds tremble at the same time. If Lu Xiaoyu won't come out, then I'll deal with you ants first. No matter where he hides, he absolutely can't escape this ancestor's palm. With a snort, the demon ancestor approached Xiaolong's group. In truth, before he could sense Lu Xiaoyu, he had already released the power of his primordial divinity. This included the boundless starry sky, the 33 heavens, and even the distant 3,000 worlds. He could roughly see everything. In that situation, Demon Alpha was still unable to find a trace of Lu Xiaoyu. However, he wasn't in a hurry at all. No matter how strong Lu Xiaoyu was, he was only at the Dao Carrier realm, so it was conceivable that Lu Xiaoyu could rely on some means to deceive his perception. However, even if he could hide once, he couldn't hide forever. After the demon ancestor took down the 33 heavens and the 3,000 worlds, even Pengu would be found by him, let alone Lu Xiaoyu. Perhaps in this world, only the creator of the 3,000 great worlds could fight against him. However, after so many years, that person had never appeared. Would he appear at this time? Even if he appeared as the demon ancestor, how could he be afraid of him? Prepare for battle. Xiaolong shouted in a deep voice as he watched the demon ancestor approach step by step. All the life forms' hearts were in their throats. They were all ready to use their flesh and blood to meet the demon ancestor's blood attack. Everyone's eyes were red as they raised the weapons in their hands. Their auras were released, crazily fluctuating. The demon ancestor, on the other hand, had a cold smile on his face. His tall and sturdy demonic body rampaged through the void, extremely oppressive. Since his strength had recovered to its peak, there was no reason for him to wait any longer. The 33 heavens and the 3,000 worlds would be destroyed and become the demon realm. Of course, the Daluocean, which was no longer the same as before, would definitely not be able to escape such a fate. Since Lu Xiaoyu was not here, all the killing would start from these tiny and weak ants. He. The demon ancestor's cold and hoarse laughter echoed, causing one's soul to tremble. He slowly raised a claw, and his aura began to circulate crazily. The countless life forms on the opposite side could not withstand a few blows from him and would be annihilated. He could already imagine what kind of miserable state his opponent would end up in after his attack landed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Accompanied by the demon ancestor's energy fluctuations, boundless scarlet energy shot out, turning into rays of light that scattered in the space. Ruthless, bloody, fiendish, and bloodthirsty energies flowed madly. The entire space outside the fiend-god battle domain seemed to have been transformed, causing others to feel as if they'd fallen into hell. Terrifying scenes could be seen everywhere. There were ferocious spirits running amok, bloody fiends howling miserably, ferocious spirits slaughtering with their blades, ghosts and shadows roaming about. Every scene was like the abyss of purgatory, terrifying for no reason. All these scenes could corrode the flesh and soul of a life form. The demon ancestors' attack had not truly landed, but in the formation on the opposite side, there were already living beings in a daze, almost collapsing into nothingness. Only a few people were able to maintain a clear mind. When Xiaolong, Dibatian, and the others saw this scene, they had no better way to deal with it other than to face it head-on. Xiaolong slowly raised a hand. He did not want to wait any longer. Even if he was not afraid of death, if he delayed any longer, the other experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 worlds would not be able to withstand it no matter what, and there would be a large number of casualties. Therefore, the best choice now was to fight the demon ancestor head-on. Even if he could not win, he had to give it his all. Suddenly, just as Xiaolong was about to shout kill, the demon ancestor's body suddenly stopped moving forward. It was as if the demon ancestor had sensed something different. The demon ancestor turned his head and looked in another direction. What entered his eyes was the endless space of the star field, and huge stars were rumbling as they revolved. However, as they revolved, some fluctuations were silently transmitted over, and the demon ancestor sensed it. I see. After carefully sensing it, a cold smile appeared on Luoho's face. He muttered to himself, I was wondering where you were hiding. It turns out that you went to attack the imageless realm. Your talent and comprehension are extraordinary, and you actually succeeded. It's a pity that you're one step too late. Since this ancestor has already recovered, how can I allow you to complete that step? As he spoke, the demon ancestor actually ignored Xiaolong and the others. Without another word, his figure flashed, and he directly charged towards the source of the fluctuations. Chi. However, before he could travel too far, layers of dense light nets appeared in the space of the star field, emerging from nothingness and blocking the demon ancestor's figure for a moment. How can you stop this ancestor with such means? The demon ancestor coldly snorted. He suddenly waved his hand and brazenly clawed down, directly attacking. Chi. This claw did not cause too much of a ripple, but the layers of dense light net could not withstand the claw for more than a breath's time before it was directly shattered. The demon ancestor's figure was like a ferocious beast opening up a path. He cut through the layers of light nets and passed through them. These layers of light nets were set up by the ancient great god Pango to accumulate power to suppress the 18 levels of hell. It was a terrifying array formed by stars. Later, Lu Xiaoyu had borrowed the power of the origin of chaos left behind by the great god Pango to transform it, completely enveloping the 18 levels of hell with the intention of shrinking the battlefield within the range of the demon ancestor, thereby reducing the damage to the 33 heavens. However, now that the 18 levels of hell had long been destroyed and no longer existed, the entire array continued to operate. However, today, the demon ancestor had recovered and returned. This kind of power could no longer stop him. The demon ancestor, he found the boss. Looking in the direction that the demon ancestor went, Xiaolong could not help but speak in an extremely solemn manner. That tall and sturdy figure suddenly stopped attacking, and it really stunned everyone for a long time. Very few people could guess the real reason for this matter. However, Xiaolong knew that the direction that the demon ancestor left in was the direction of Earth. Most importantly, Old Master Lu Xiaoyu was in seclusion there, trying to break through to the enchanting realm. Based on what the demon ancestor said, Xiaoyu must have broken through to the enchanting realm. Dibatian looked at all of this and said, the demon ancestor's previous mutterings did not deliberately avoid Xiaolong and the rest. So many experts heard it. Lu Xiaoyu's success in breaking through to the enchanting realm was great news. For many creatures whose cultivation was not absolute, Hope was ignited in the depths of their hearts. The appearance of an enchanting realm expert naturally had the power to compete with the demon ancestor. It was still unknown who would win. At the very least, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would no longer have any room to resist. Thinking of this, many creatures almost cheered in excitement. Since the failure of the battle against the demon ancestor thousands of years ago, when the Rock Emperor Du Xiaofu suffered a sudden attack from the demon ancestor, his life and death were uncertain. This was probably the best news. Xiaoyu just broke through, and his condition might not be stable. The demon ancestor must be going to attack him this time. Let's go and help him. Yang was said in a low voice, and directly rushed out with the heavy sword in his hand. Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, and Lu Xintong looked at each other, and their hearts sank to the bottom. The demon ancestor originally planned to kill everyone present, but he suddenly left to cause trouble for Lu Xiaoyu. Perhaps even that existence that caused chaos in the ancient times would not be willing to see someone reach the same realm as him, and cause too much of an impact on his next move. The demon ancestor's actions were definitely going to target Lu Xiaoyu, and before his cultivation stabilized, he wanted to kill him in the cradle of the enchanting realm. Thinking of this, Xiaolong and the rest could not wait any longer. They only hated that they were not strong enough, and could not reach Lu Xiaoyu first to resist the demon ancestor together. Everyone stay here and wait for news, Xiaolong hurriedly said, and turned to leave. Uncle Xiaolong, father, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the rest all rushed forward, wanting to go with him, but they were all stopped. Xiaolong's meaning was very clear. They could not help much in helping Lu Xiaoyu, so they might as well stay here and wait for news. As long as they could stabilize their boss's enchanting realm cultivation, they could fight with the demon ancestor. The 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds finally saw a glimmer of hope. Looking at the figures leaving quickly, Lu Jingyun, the Holy Great Emperor, Duanmu Chongtian, Long Ke, and the rest stood where they were, and they were actually more nervous than when they faced the demon ancestor. Lu Xiaoyu had really broken through and successfully entered the enchanting realm. The demon ancestor's senses would definitely not be wrong. Everyone felt excited, but at the same time, there was also a strong sense of worry. Just when Lu Xiaoyu had just broken through, the demon ancestor felt it. He only hoped that when the other party charged over, Lu Xiaoyu had already stabilized his realm and had enough strength to fight with him. The experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, one by one, withdrew their formations, and many people began to discuss fervently. There was unimaginable shock in their hearts, and also uncontrollable excitement and agitation. But at the same time, everyone's heart was filled with worry. All of this could only depend on Lu Xiaoyu. On the other side, after the demon ancestor abandoned the countless beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, he broke through the invisible barriers along the way. Like an unimaginably strong fish, with extremely ferocious strength, he broke through the shackles of an inescapable net, wanting to go to the end and kill the person who set up the formation. Even if Panga revives, it's impossible to trap this ancestor with such a formation. Lu Xiaoyu, you're still lacking a lot in the end. When this ancestor finds you, it'll be the time of your death. At this time, the demon ancestor had already traveled a great distance, standing in the void. Behind him, the connections between countless layers of formations had been torn apart by him, turning into nothingness. The orbits of the huge stars had been changed, and the entire star-field space seemed to have become chaotic. Many stars collided with each other and shattered into pieces. This scene was incomparably terrifying, as if the end of the world had arrived. Every time the stars collided, terrifying ripples would be set off. These stars were originally pieces of broken worlds, and the remnant power within them burst out as if boiling. Just as the demon ancestor had said, even if Pengu were to come back, it would be impossible to stop him at his peak with such a formation. One had to know that when suppressing the demon ancestor, his body and primordial spirit had been forcefully separated, and his primordial spirit had been divided into 18 parts, using 18 Tao-bearing realm experts as the foundation to suppress him. This was why he had not been able to rise again for so many years. If the demon ancestor was at his peak, these methods would be nothing in his eyes. Now, deep in the starry sky, the demon ancestor's figure temporarily stopped, his eyes staring at a bright light in front of him. This light was incomparably dazzling, as if it was the brightest thing in the world, containing endless energy. It was the source of chaos that Lu Xiaoyu had set up here, something left behind by the great god Pango, to be used as the source of energy for the starry sky formation. Pango, I'm afraid you didn't expect this day to come. This ancestor knows you're in that small world, and I originally wanted to find you after dealing with the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Now that I've dealt with Lu Xiaoyu, I'll go and find you. The demon ancestor's face was cold as he spoke, one word at a time. After he finished speaking, a demonic claw brazenly slapped out, fiercely pressing down on the source of chaos in front of him. Boundless scarlet power surged wildly, fiercely invading the area. Ka 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 ka. Bursts of cracking sounds spread out, and the source of chaos, under the attack of the demon ancestor's power, began to emit cracking sounds, and cracks began to climb up. It wasn't long before a loud bang resounded, and the entire quintessence of chaos suddenly exploded into pieces. Terrifying energy surged outwards, instantly sweeping through the surrounding space for billions of miles. Countless stars were reduced to dust. Invisible fluctuations crazily spread out, like a ferocious tide, pushing towards the endless distance. The source of chaos left behind by the great god Pangu was shattered by the demon ancestor's attack, and with it, the formation in the starry sky instantly disintegrated. All the stars left their original orbits one after another. They were like a swarm of wasps that were in a state of chaos as they went on a rampage. The entire space of the star field began to boil. A moment later, countless stars collided together, creating a terrifying shockwave. Lu Xiaoyu, this ancestor will send you on your way. The demon ancestor whispered. He did not waste any more time. He followed the shockwaves that were expanding. Some of the stars' trajectories were disrupted, and they came straight at him. However, with the demon ancestor's power, they were all shattered. Such a scene made the demon ancestor look like an unrivaled evil lord. Even if 10,000 tribulations fell upon him, they wouldn't be able to shake him in the slightest. He only had a single goal, and that was to find the place where Lu Xiaoyu was making his breakthrough. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire starry sky boiled over. After the power source of the formation collapsed, everything here lost its shackles and could no longer operate like before. The formation laid down by the great god Pangu and then modified by Lu Xiaoyu had finally been destroyed. Moreover, the terrifying effects of this continued to spread out, rapidly spreading out. It seemed as if it would affect the entire starry sky, engulfing every nook and cranny of this starry sky until everything turned to dust. Far off in the distance, in the only world in the vast starry skies where life existed, there were several strange metal devices in the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds that were extremely strange to the powerhouses of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds. Suddenly, they began to emit ear-piercing alarms. Many humans were thrown into chaos. All of this was within the demon ancestor's perception, but he ignored it all. He slightly withdrew his gaze and looked towards a certain place. There was a massive chaos. It was the manifestation of life. Chapter 2983. The Great Galactic Array was destroyed, and the formless laws of order were broken by the demon ancestor. Huge stars completely broke away from their fixed trajectories, and like beasts that had broken free from their cages, they became abnormally ferocious and powerful. The stars collided with each other, erupting with unimaginable destructive energy, causing the entire starry sky to become a mess and be annihilated one after another. All of this spread very quickly, and it didn't take long for it to reach the only place in the starry sky where life existed, which was the world of Earth. The creatures in this world were completely different from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 upper-class worlds. They didn't have the ability to cultivate Or it could be said that they didn't have an adequate cultivation environment. However, the human race here opened up a different path and developed a method called technology. For many years, they spared no effort to explore the entire starry sky and universe, searching for some of the world's secrets. When the starry sky was in chaos, due to the extremely slow flow of time, many things in the outside world were observed, causing a large-scale panic. Especially at night, even if one were to observe with their naked eyes, they could clearly see the colorful lights flickering in the sky. Moreover, they carried a terrifying feeling of explosions coming from beyond the sky. Such a scene was tens of thousands of times more beautiful than a certain race's New Year's Eve every year. Such a commotion was something that the creatures in this world had never experienced before. It was like a miracle. The entire world of Earth was in an uproar because of such a change. Endless ancient legends were opened and spread, causing a stir. As for those who could observe all of this, they were in a constant state of panic. They realized an extremely serious matter. The end of the world was coming. Once that terrifying energy swept over, how could such a small place like Earth survive? The creatures in this world, the many humans in this world, couldn't resist at all. Just as these people were about to fall into despair, some ground equipment suddenly observed something even more inconceivable. Some blurry images showed that outside of Earth, an invisible protective shield seemed to have appeared. Under the impact of the huge stars, Earth emitted a terrifying tremor, but none of the stars could break through and cause any damage. The terrifying chaos in the universe was completely blocked outside, making this place the only pure land in the boundless starry sky. Earth is indeed protected by the gods. This conclusion quickly spread among the human race. At this point, no one questioned the existence of gods anymore, even though they still didn't know what gods were like. However, everything that they had detected through their methods could not be false. The universe was indeed in the midst of destruction, but Earth seemed to be protected by a mysterious force. It did not have to worry about being ravaged by this terrible storm at all. All these changes continued to play out as if they were going to continue forever. Chi. No one could sense that some imperceptible changes were taking place on Earth. Bursts of vigorous spirit chi began to be generated from the invisible, spreading between heaven and earth. Only the human race had intelligence, but their frail bodies were unable to sense these things. However, many of them gradually felt that some kind of mysterious change had occurred in the world. Many human beings felt that their bodies were lighter, their eyes were brighter, their bodies were stronger, their breaths were smoother, and they could move more freely. This kind of change was only happening imperceptibly. It might take a long time to truly have a huge impact on the living beings on Earth. In a place extremely far away from Earth, the chaotic spirit chi with the multicolored light was surging, and a terrifying power was emitted. It was as if the chaotic spirit chi was nurturing a terrifying existence that could pierce through heaven and earth. Outside the chaotic spirit chi, the demon ancestor's tall and sturdy body stood tall. The scarlet hair on his body swayed without any wind, and a murderous aura surged. As expected of Lu Xiaoyu, this ancestor should have known that since you could break through the Pathfinder realm with the body of a postnatal life form, then the formless realm wouldn't be too difficult for you. However, if you had done this earlier, this ancestor would have had to spend more effort to kill you. Unfortunately, it's too late now. Kikik. The demon ancestor stood in front of the chaotic spirit chi and said sinisterly. In the end, he couldn't help but sneer. He could clearly sense that the being nurtured in the chaotic spirit chi was Lu Xiaoyu. The demon ancestor had walked out of the chaotic spirit chi. He had broken through the chaotic spirit chi with Panga, Heavenly Lord Daluo, and the others, and then opened up several huge worlds. Of course, he knew that the chaotic spirit chi came from nothingness, and the chaotic creatures were nurtured by the chaotic spirit chi. In other words, Lu Xiaoyu only needed to break through the chaotic spirit chi to step into the formless realm, and he would be no different from the chaotic creatures. The only difference was that the chaotic spirit chi that nurtured Panga, Heavenly Lord Daluo, and the others was naturally born from nothingness, while Lu Xiaoyu's chaotic spirit chi was obtained with his own strength. There was no difference in strength between the two. If Lu Xiaoyu really broke through the chaotic spirit qi, his combat strength wouldn't be much different from the demon ancestors. Lu Xiaoyu, this ancestor is coming to take your life. The demon ancestor stood there for a long time, and then his eyes suddenly narrowed. With a deep roar, he flew up and plunged into the chaotic spirit qi. Not long after he entered, Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong rushed over. Chaotic spirit qi, this must be something that boss evolved. The demon ancestor isn't here now, so he must have already entered and is going to attack boss. Let's go in quickly and help him, Xiaolong said anxiously. Then, he led the other 4 people and quickly entered the primal chaos light. They were very anxious. Lu Xiaoyu had just broken through, and it was very likely that he hadn't stabilized his realm yet. If the demon ancestor took advantage of this, the consequences would be unimaginable. There was no need to think at all. They directly plunged into the chaotic spirit qi, and everyone was wrapped up in it. This was a grotesque scene, and it felt as if he had plunged into mud. What was different was that the mud here contained terrifying energy fluctuations and was entwined with colorful lights. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. As the chaotic spirit qi shot out, it was also constantly splitting, producing dense yin and yang qi, which was extremely terrifying. Traveling through the chaotic spirit qi was very difficult, but fortunately, the demon ancestor was in front and had already opened a path, greatly reducing the pressure on Xiaolong and the others. When Xiaolong and the others entered, they saw the demon ancestor standing in front of a strange light, which looked like a cloud bag. Above the cloud pouch, waves of fluctuations were transmitted and 5 colored rays of light were emitted from it, illuminating the entire primal chaos in an incomparably magnificent manner. Chaos Divine Fetus. Looking at the cloud bag, the demon ancestor softly said, "The Chaos Divine Fetus was a place where a new life was born. Just like in ancient times, the 3,000 gods and demons were born from this Chaos Divine Fetus. Pangu, Rahu, and Heavenly Lord Absolute Law were all born from this Chaos Divine Fetus. Who else could be born from this Chaos Divine Fetus other than Lu Xiaoyu? Lu Xiaoyu, since you've fallen into my hands, you can consider your death a worthy one. This Chaos Divine Fetus is useful to me, but you probably didn't expect it to help me in the end, right?" Hee hee. The demon ancestor laughed coldly, his words incomparably terrifying. He didn't plan to directly break open the Chaos Divine Fetus, but he wanted to erase Lu Xiaoyu's consciousness that was born from it. Rahu had other plans of his own, and obtaining this Chaos Divine Fetus would be of great use to him. He glanced at Xiaolong and the others behind him, then ignored them and stretched out a claw, reaching for the cloud bag. Attack! Xiaolong and the others immediately became extremely nervous. They absolutely didn't dare to imagine what would happen if the demon ancestor's claw landed. Without thinking, the 5 of them charged out, wanting to stop the demon ancestor's actions. However, with their strength, they couldn't be faster than the demon ancestor's claw. They almost felt despair as they watched the demon ancestor approach the Chaos Divine Fetus bit by bit. Their speed seemed to have slowed down by thousands of times. Their strength was originally far inferior to the demon ancestors, so the scene looked even more bizarre. When the demon ancestor's claw was about to touch the Chaos Divine Fetus, Xiaolong and the others seemed to have just moved. Oh no! Xiaolong's heart sank. He knew that this was the demon ancestor's method. An existence at the illusionary realm could control time and space with ease. Even the 5 of them, who were half a step into the Tao realm, couldn't break through that invisible restraint. Seeing that the demon ancestor was about to touch where Lu Xiaoyu was, Xiaolong and the others' hearts almost jumped out of their chests. However, at this moment, a resounding saber hum shook heaven and earth, appearing out of thin air. Qila, just as the sound of the blade was heard, the ancestor demon's hand that was about to touch the Chaos Sword Essence's claw was slashed by a horrifying blade light. The blade light slashed into the scarlet hair. Clang! The demon ancestor's palm shook, and the sound of metal vibrating rang out. He gently retreated a little, seemingly a little surprised. In just an instant, a long saber appeared out of thin air, emitting a blood-gold light all over. There was also dense chaotic chi lingering on it. Blood slaughter. This long saber was very familiar to Xiaolong, Dibatian, Yanghua, and the others. It was none other than Lu Xiaoyou's natal artifact, blood slaughter. Seemingly because of Lu Xiaoyou's breakthrough, the power that blood slaughter emitted at this time was actually much more powerful than before. When it collided with the demon ancestor, it was actually only shaken away and was not damaged. Primeval treasure? Not bad. Seeing this long saber, not only was the demon ancestor not worried in the slightest, but he also had some unexpected joy. Hearing his words, the shock in the hearts of Xiaolong and the others was huge. Boss really succeeded in breaking through. Even blood slaughter's level has been upgraded to become a primeval treasure. Xiaolong murmured, extremely shocked in his heart. Blood slaughter had always been placed in the fiend god battlefield, guarding the gap left behind by the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds when the beings of the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds retreated. Now that all the formations had been broken by the demon ancestor, there was no need to continue guarding it. However, under the influence of Lu Xiaoyou's breakthrough, his natal saber, blood slaughter, had also undergone a terrifying transformation. It had actually transformed from a Chaos Taoist artifact to a primeval treasure. How could Xiaolong and the others not be shocked by such a huge change? One had to know that a primeval treasure was something that only the fiend gods who walked out of the primeval chaos could possess. It was said that the giant axe that the great god Pangu used to create the world was a primeval treasure. However, all of this originally only existed in legends. None of the postnatal beings had ever seen such a terrifying item. They also found it hard to imagine that with the increase of Lu Xiaoyou's cultivation, blood slaughter would one day be able to break through to such a level and appear out of thin air, automatically defending against the enemy and blocking the demon ancestor's palm. Why resist? Everything you've done is futile. Looking at the long saber that was surging with power in front of him, the demon ancestor spoke softly. As he spoke, he also glanced at the chaotic divine fetus that was already close at hand. After he finished speaking, Luo Ho once again gathered terrifying power, and scarlet energy formed in his hand. Ferocious fluctuations filled the air, entangling toward blood slaughter. His other hand reached out toward the chaotic divine fetus that was pregnant with Lu Xiaoyou. He actually wanted to block blood slaughter and wipe out Lu Xiaoyou's consciousness at the same time. Blood slaughter. You must stop him. Xiaolong and the others were extremely nervous. The 5 of them seemed to have been shackled by some invisible shackles that they could not break free from. Now, all of their hopes were placed on blood slaughter. As long as this saber could block the demon ancestor for a certain amount of time, it would be much easier for Lu Xiaoyou to break out of the chaotic divine fetus. However, under everyone's expectant gazes, blood slaughter suddenly let out a terrifying hum. Then, it actually did not take the demon ancestor's attack head-on. Instead, it changed the direction of the saber, stirring up a saber light that seemed to pierce through the heavens and earth, directly slashing toward Lu Xiaoyou's chaotic divine fetus. Qila, a primeval chaos Dao weapon, was indestructible. It could break through the primeval chaos and had the ability to split the heavens and earth. As the saber light shot out, the surrounding primeval chaos seemed to be about to burst open under this attack. Endless yin and yang qi appeared. However, the entire primeval chaos was still maintained and did not truly shatter. However, the chaotic divine fetus, which was right in front of blood slaughter, suddenly burst open after being struck by this saber. Then, a figure flew out from within and soared into the sky like a god slowly ascending to the heavens. Terrifying energy crazily spilled out as if the entire primeval chaos was about to explode. At the same time, something strange and inexplicable happened. Not only did the primeval chaos not explode, but it also started to bubble as if it was boiling. All of it rolled toward that figure and was absorbed by him. Hiss! In a short moment, all of the energy disappeared, and the entire space became clear again. Everyone present immediately returned to the boundless starry sky. However, At this time, it could no longer be called a starry sky because many stars had collided with each other and exploded one by one, leaving only smoke and dust floating in the sky. Boss, Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yang Guo, and Lu Xintong were very happy when they saw this scene. They were so excited that they cheered. Their gazes were all focused on the figure that had emerged from the chaotic divine fetus. Seeing Lu Xiaoyu appear, the five of them were extremely excited. He did it. He did it. Xiaoyu successfully took that step and broke through the chaotic divine fetus. He walked out of the primeval chaos and achieved the formless body. He did something that only the ancient fiend gods could do. It's unbelievable. Dibatian and Donghuang Taixian were both very excited. They no longer had the calm expression of the old generation experts. As the earliest experts of the 3,000 sectors, they were actually sentient life forms. However, due to some special characteristics of the 3,000 sectors, the two of them had not reached the realm of path-bearing. Until now, they were still stuck at the threshold of half-step path-bearing, unable to advance even an inch. However, who would have thought that Lu Xiaoyu, who had surpassed them many years ago, would accomplish this unprecedented feat today? The formless body, that was the formless body. In the distant ancient times, apart from the few fiend gods who had broken through the primeval chaos, Lu Xiaoyu was the first to reach this step. Most importantly, he was a post-celestial life form. Let's retreat quickly. Boss has successfully broken out of seclusion. He should be able to compete with the fiend ancestor. Xiaolong suddenly pulled the four people beside him and quickly flew into the distance. He only wanted to be further away so that he would not be a burden to Boss. The great battle between two illusionary realms was probably something that these people, completely didn't even dare touch the aftershocks. Now that Lu Xiaoyu had achieved the formless body, it was equivalent to standing on the same level as the fiend ancestor. Even if there was still some gap in cultivation, it was definitely not as exaggerated as before. Now that things had developed to this point, they did not dare to say that the 33 heavens and 3,000 sectors were completely protected, but at least they would not have to face the fiend ancestor's bloody suppression. They already had enough power to resist. Lu Xiaoyu. After Xueling broke through the chaotic divine fetus, Luo Ho withdrew his attack. He looked at the man in green in front of him, and his eyes finally showed some seriousness. This Lu Xiaoyu was indeed extraordinary. He had done too many things that exceeded his expectations. It could be said that the other powerhouses of the entire fiend race had all died because of Lu Xiaoyu. If not for his many years of arrangements, the 33 heavens and 3,000 sectors would have long been reduced to the fiend domain and turned into their territory. How could there be so many incidents? In the fiend ancestor's heart, there was an unimaginable hatred for Lu Xiaoyu. However, because his strength was far higher than the other party before, he did not show it particularly clearly. Now that the man in green had actually succeeded in taking that crucial step and did not die at his hands, this made the hatred in Luo Ho's heart explode instantly. Chapter 2984. Phew! Lu Xiaoyu, who was standing in the void, was surrounded by colorful light. He looked like a god. He closed his eyes slightly as if he was feeling the growth of his strength. In the end, the endless light converged into his body, disappearing without a trace. As for Lu Xiaoyu's eyes, they naturally opened. Within those eyes, there was a world that was being formed. It was incomparably mysterious. In a short period of time, Xiaolong, Dibatian, and the others had already retreated far away. However, they continued to retreat, wanting to get as far away from the two as possible. I didn't expect you to be faster than I expected. However, this still can't change your fate. Looking at Lu Xiaoyu, the demon ancestor's hoarse and gloomy voice sounded as he said these words. He did not delay any longer. He directly raised his claw and brazenly attacked. This sharp claw tore the heavens and split the earth. It was as if it had traveled through time and space from ancient times. It descended in front of Lu Xiaoyu, wanting to tear his body into pieces. A terrifying chaotic aura burst out, sweeping in all directions and sweeping away everything. Within the endless range, the shattered stars turned into dust. In an instant, this claw turned into a chaotic state. In this world, it's still not your turn to be arrogant. Since I've entered the formless realm, I'll be like the great god Pangu and senior heavenly Lord Daluo. I'll suppress you forever and never be able to rise again. These words came out of Lu Xiaoyu's throat. Just by standing there, he seemed to represent the pinnacle of this world. He was above the great Tao and beyond the heavens and earth. Buzz, as soon as he grasped the blood slayer in his hand, a terrifying buzzing sound vibrated out. The invisible wave spread out like a wave, pushing away all the chaotic aura in the distance. Swish! The blood slayer was raised. Without any fancy moves, it suddenly slashed down, directly hitting the demon ancestor's palm. In just this simple attack, it was filled with unparalleled terrifying power. It directly collided with the demon ancestor's claw. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. It sounded very ordinary. However, the demon ancestor's body was blasted away, and Lu Xiaoyu was forced back again and again. It was the first time they had exchanged blows, but the difference in strength between the two of them was not much. However, the collision this time set off a terrifying invisible ripple that instantly spread out and swept into the distance. Countless stars in the surroundings had been crushed into chaos, and they were once again pushed into the infinite distance. In the vast space, there was nothing else. It was empty to the extreme. As far as the eye could see, there was only a dot of light in the distance that was as bright as a bean. That was where the Earth was located. There was a mysterious light shield protecting it, and its surroundings were vast and boundless. In the starry sky of the entire universe, all the stars had disappeared, leaving only the tiny world of Earth floating in the air, all alone. On the other side were the demon ancestor and Lu Xiaoyu. He's not weak at all. However, with just you, how can you fight against this ancestor? Luo Ho stood in the void and stared at Lu Xiaoyu as he said sinisterly. The reason why he was defeated in the ancient times was because Pangu and Heavenly Lord Absolute joined forces. Otherwise, even in the ancient times, he, Luo Ho, would not be afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight. Furthermore, even when the two joined forces, it was also the outcome of one dying and one being annihilated. Heavenly Lord Absolute had fallen long ago, and Pangu had not been able to recover after so many years. All of this was due to his undying body. As long as he was immortal, who could truly pose a threat to him? Moreover, the one in front of him was just Lu Xiaoyu, who had just obtained the formless body. He would not make Luo Ho feel fear. Is that so? The corners of Lu Xiaoyu's mouth curled into a faint smile. He looked at the demon ancestor and said indifferently, I just broke through to the formless realm. However, the difference in strength between us isn't that great. If we really fight, I'm afraid you won't have any advantage in the end. Lu Xiaoyu said softly. His entire person looked calm and relaxed, unlike the endless pressure he had to endure because of the demon ancestor's matter in the past. He was neither hurried nor slow, not in a hurry to fight with the demon ancestor at all. It was just that with his words, the demon ancestor's expression did not change, and he said, So what? This ancestor has an undying body. No matter how powerful you, Lu Xiaoyu, a postnatal life form, are, how can you pose a threat to me? This world absolutely can't escape the fate of being reduced to a fiend region. While this ancestor will eventually find that ultimate art and achieve a true indestructible body. Jejejejej. The demon ancestor opened his mouth and said arrogantly. Finished saying this sentence, he even started laughing wildly, seemingly thinking of something that he was most proud of. And hearing his words, Lu Xiaoyu's brows involuntarily raised up abruptly. The words that Luo Ho said attracted his attention, making him give birth to a huge doubt in his heart. What was the ultimate art that the other party was talking about? Could it be that this world still had some deeper secret? Or was it that above the formless realm, there was still an even more profound realm existing? In addition, the demon ancestor himself clearly already had an indestructible body. Then how could there be the talk of achieving a true indestructible body? After a brief moment of thinking, Lu Xiaoyu seemed to have thought of something. But he did not dare to be sure, and also did not voice out his doubts. Since that's the case, then let's fight. I also want to see just how powerful the demon ancestor who turned the entire ancient era upside down, causing countless living beings to suffer a calamity of annihilation, is. Lu Xiaoyu's tone suddenly became deep, looking at the demon ancestor and saying so. He ignited a frenzied battle intent, wanting to fight it out with the demon ancestor. Just breaking through to the formless realm, just nice needed to accurately measure his true strength. While talking, Lu Xiaoyu's figure rose into the air, the long saber in his hand suddenly slashing down. Swoosh, amidst the resplendent light, a waterfall akin to the Milky Way pouring down from the 9 heavens, and also like an immeasurable dragon's body lying across, traversing the void space, attacking straight for the demon ancestor's head. In this waterfall, one could see clusters of bizarre scenes. There were magnificent worlds evolving and taking form, then being annihilated. Lu Xiaoyu had just broken through to the formless realm and had yet to open up a world that belonged to him. However, with his current cultivation, every single move he made carried the charm of splitting the heavens and earth apart, and it was extremely wondrous. Finishing you off first, then going to take down the 33 heavens is the same. The demon ancestor gave a cold snort and did not evade in the slightest. He actually charged straight for the saber-light waterfall that Lu Xiaoyu unleashed. He had his own plans in his heart. In reality, if it was a one-on-one fight, Luo Ho was not afraid of Lu Xiaoyu at all. But he only wanted to finish off this person who could be considered a threat as soon as possible right now, in order to prevent another unforeseen event. One had to know that until now, there was still a fiend god who opened up the 3,000 boundless worlds who had yet to appear. The demon ancestor did not know the other party's specific strength, but there was absolutely no weakling in the formless realm. If he joined forces with Lu Xiaoyu to fight again, he really would not end up with any benefits. But thinking about it, that creator of the 3,000 boundless worlds probably encountered something extraordinary. Otherwise, it would not have been impossible for him to not show up all this time. However, this was not important. As the demon ancestor, he absolutely would not allow such a thing to happen, resulting in the scene from the ancient era to appear again. Kill! The demon ancestor roared, and the blood-colored hair on his body danced wildly. His 4 limbs streaked across the void, and his pair of claws could destroy everything. He directly grabbed Lu Xiaoyu's saber light between his palms, and then pulled fiercely. With a chi-la sound, the terrifying saber light was torn into pieces, turning into fragments of energy that withered away. Lu Xiaoyu did not care about this. Looking at Luo Ho, who was charging at him rapidly, his figure did not move at all. He was as steady as Mount Tai, and once again, he slashed out with his saber. This saber slashed open the void space, causing a smooth and flat opening to appear. Light of chaos burst out from within, and Luo Ho also slashed out with his claws, turning Lu Xiaoyu's attack into nothingness. The two of them were engaged in the simplest battle, and for the time being, they were not fighting with their full strength. However, in a very distant place, Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong were all shocked. Even though the battle between Lu Xiaoyu and Luo Ho did not cause a huge commotion, the faint ripples that were transmitted over had extremely terrifying power. The 5 of them felt that it was difficult to breathe, and their bloodlines were restricted, making it difficult for them to unleash their full strength. Is this a battle between 2 mighty figures? It looks very simple, but it's really terrifying. Dibatian licked his lips. This was also the first time he had seen such a scene, and he could not help but be shocked. If Xiaoyu and Luo Ho both fight with their full strength, I'm afraid it's not just terrifying. Beside Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian also sighed and said in shock. The ancient era had long passed, and the few gods and devils who created the world had either fallen or been suppressed. It was only today that they truly witnessed such a scene. Compared to those ancient legends, the battle between Lu Xiaoyu and the demon ancestor did not seem to be particularly terrifying. Thinking about it, it was understandable. The ancient battle involved the entire Pango world and the demon ancestor's world, and the embryonic Daluocean. After that battle, the Pango world was destroyed, turning into the 33 heavens and countless small worlds. Not a single part of it remained. The demon clan's world was also severely damaged, and only the 18 levels of hell were left. It could be said that it suffered a great loss. Therefore, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixian, and the others understood that if the demon ancestor and Lu Xiaoyu fought with their full strength without any restraint, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would not be able to escape the calamity. From this point of view, Lu Xiaoyu was obviously at a disadvantage. With the countless lives at stake, his attacks would be greatly restricted. Hopefully, the demon ancestor won't go crazy. Otherwise, even if the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds are not completely destroyed, they will suffer unimaginable damage. Xiaolong sighed softly and said. After that, the few of them stopped talking and turned their gazes towards the battlefield. They saw that the terrifying battle between Lu Xiaoyu and the demon ancestor continued to erupt. However, the two of them did not seem to intend to change the battlefield. They only wanted to settle everything in the boundless void. One could imagine that the process would not be short. The demon ancestor had absolute confidence that he could defeat Lu Xiaoyu in the end. Lu Xiaoyu, on the other hand, seemed to be waiting for something. He was not in a hurry to fight the demon ancestor. Instead, he was happy to limit the battle to this place to avoid bringing disaster to the 33 heavens. At the same time, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds were still waiting at the Fiend God battlefield. They were too far away, so they didn't know what was going on. They could only faintly feel the terrifying fluctuations coming from the battlefield. Under Xiaolong's instructions before he left, these experts were all guarding this place and did not leave without permission. They were all waiting for the final result to come from there. If they were needed to fight the demon ancestor, these people would not hesitate at all. For the peace of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, if sacrificing their lives could suppress the demon ancestor's ferocity, they would definitely be willing. Shenwu World. Almost as soon as the demon ancestor broke through the chaos and Lu Xiaoyu appeared, Du Xiaofu, who was inside the stone coffin in the Du family's ancestral shrine, was also awakening. These three people were closely connected. It was also at this time that a miraculous scene appeared in the sky of Shenwu World. It was like a miracle. Streaks of ferocious lightning shuttled back and forth in the sky, releasing a terrifying heavenly might that spread to every corner of the world. However, if one were to take a closer look, or if a super expert were to pry into it, one would discover that it was not lightning at all. Instead, it was a mysterious pattern. It was like the most profound and obscure carvings in the world, and it possessed the most mysterious and unfathomable power. Everywhere in Shenwu World, there were still many living beings in seclusion. Many of them were stuck at a bottleneck and could not break through for a long time. These people all had the same feeling. They only needed to work a little harder to break through and step into a new realm. It was because of this that many people in this world had been in seclusion for many years. In reality, if they could all break through at the same time, then Shenwu World would have dozens of meditators and millions of undying realm cultivators. This was definitely a terrifying force. Though it could not be compared to the 33 skies or the 3,000 worldly worlds, compared to Shenwu World's current scale, it was still lacking something. On this day, a strange force suddenly appeared between the heavens and the earth. It seemed to have triggered some kind of unfathomable principle, and it suddenly produced a terrifying buzzing sound. Along with this rumbling sound, the mysterious patterns in the sky all began to move crazily and converge in a certain direction. This direction was the sky above the Huang country's palace. Boom, boom, boom. The lightning formed by the traces of the Tao did not stop rumbling. In the sky above the Huang country, a boundless dark cloud was formed. The lightning was like a giant dragon that danced and swam freely. Quite a few creatures were shocked by this scene. These were all relatively weak cultivators who hadn't entered a state of seclusion. This strange phenomenon in the sky must have something to do with the Rock Emperor. Someone spoke. There was actually a strong sense of excitement in his voice. That's right. It must have something to do with the Rock Emperor. In the entire Shenwu world, he's probably the only one with such ability. At this time, Many people knew that the powerful cultivators from the 3,000 worldly worlds had already left. However, among those who remained in Shan Wu world, only the Rock Emperor was left. Moreover, the strange phenomenon was not something a normal person could trigger. This made these people even more certain of their guess. Is the Rock Emperor about to awaken? A creature murmured, full of hope and expectation. The Rock Emperor had been brought back by the ruler of the 3,000 worldly worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, 4,000 of years. However, there had been no news from him, causing many living beings to be extremely worried. However, as time passed, they had a firm belief that as long as they continued to wait, their Rock Emperor would one day return to them as the strongest person in Shanwu world. Many living beings hoped that day would come sooner because only the Rock Emperor could truly kill the demon ancestor. Rumble. Many people from Shanwu world walked out and stopped to look. Their eyes were all fixed on the desolate country. As the boundless thunderbolts rolled and surged above his head, a terrifying pressure was released, causing many living beings to feel incomparably shocked. The commotion was so great that it almost caused the entire world to shake violently. One must know that the current Shenwu world was no longer the same as before. It was countless times bigger than it was in the past. It was so vast that those with weaker cultivations would not be able to explore it in their entire lives. This pressure doesn't seem to make people afraid. Some people carefully sensed it and found that this pressure did not make them feel any fear. However, their primordial spirits were trembling, as if they were being looked down upon by a supreme being, causing them to want to prostrate themselves. However, this prostration was out of respect, not fear due to the pressure. Just like living beings facing their closest relatives or elders, they did not feel fear. Instead, they felt a boundless warmth, causing them to feel close and respectful at the same time. This was a miraculous scene that had never happened before. Countless living beings stopped to watch. However, with their cultivations, they could not see through the deepest mysteries. Amidst the flashes of lightning, they gradually gathered together and compressed, causing the lightning to burn even brighter. In the end, the terrifying lightning struck down fiercely. A pillar of lightning that was 1,000,000 times thicker than a mountain struck down from the sky and headed straight for the Du clan's ancestral temple. This lightning was far too terrifying. It was so thick that it almost covered half of the desolate country. However, the citizens of the desolate country did not seem to be afraid at all. They watched this scene in shock and silently waited for the lightning to strike. Sizzle, sizzle. What was strange was that after all the lightning struck down, it was completely absorbed by the stone coffin inside the Du clan's ancestral temple, causing the coffin to vibrate violently. No one noticed that there was a tiny black in the middle of the terrifying thunderbolt that had just struck down. Chapter 2985. What's going on? Why is there such a huge commotion? All the cultivators of Shun Wu world who weren't in seclusion were shocked. Many of them gathered together and asked in shock, "There's a commotion in the Du family's ancestral hall. It must be related to the Rock Emperor." Some of the cultivators sensed the commotion and said immediately. Their voices were filled with excitement. "The Rock Emperor. Is the Rock Emperor about to wake up? It's been thousands of years. The Rock Emperor is finally moving. The Rock Emperor must be about to wake up. He's about to reappear. This time, the Rock Emperor will definitely be able to step into the realm of the strongest." All the living beings who heard the news were extremely excited. Countless people spread the news and shared the joy in their hearts. Shinwu world hadn't had such a huge commotion in a long time. At least, after the Rock Emperor was ambushed by the demon ancestor and returned to this world, Shunwu world had been very peaceful. But today, the entire world went berserk. The terrifying pillar of lightning stood between the sky and the Du family's ancestral hall. It was impossible not to associate it with the Rock Emperor. Everyone believed that Du Xiaofu was about to wake up, and from the terrifying commotion, he must be going to an even more terrifying realm, overlooking the world. It's been thousands of years. The Rock Emperor has only been cultivating for a little over 10,000 years. The living beings of Shanwu world had waited for this day for far too long. Everyone rushed towards the direction of the barren country. They wanted to see how the Rock Emperor would be able to stand tall in this world once again. However, many people didn't notice a strange phenomenon. The cultivators who were in seclusion weren't awakened by the commotion. They were still quietly cultivating. It was as if their consciousness was completely sealed and they couldn't sense anything. Of course, some of the more observant cultivators noticed this, but didn't say anything. They only wanted to get to the desolate country as soon as possible and witness the arrival of a miracle. They didn't have the time to care about this. Rumble. The lightning was swift and violent. It struck the Du family's ancestral hall and formed a terrifying pillar of light that covered almost half of the desolate country. This lightning was formed from strange patterns, but it didn't carry any destructive energy. Instead, it was gentle and warm. Everyone in the desolate country felt like they were bathing in the spring breeze. In reality, this lightning was formed from thousands of Tao. It was the foundation of Shenwu world. But at this moment, it was visible to the naked eye. It turned into lightning in it, the Du family's ancestral hall. That little black dot, hidden in the middle of the lightning, it was hidden in the middle was on the lightning. After it. Du Xiaofu is. Du Xiaofu. Du on. Calm. Immediately after that, an indescribable aura suddenly spread out in all directions in this world. It was as if an invisible opportunity had been opened between heaven and earth. All the living beings in Shenwu world felt like they were getting closer to the deepest truths of the Tao. This feeling was strange and made everyone happy. Rumble. Just then, somewhere in the desolate country's royal palace, there was a loud rumble. Along with it, endless power of laws boiled and tumbled. Thousands of strands of laws danced in the void. Then, these strands of laws gathered together and began to merge and evolve. It was as if a small world had appeared, containing everything in it. Meditative forgetfulness. Little Xingxing has broken through. Other than Xiaofu, Shenwu world finally has its first meditative forgetfulness realm cultivator. Murong Yurua, Iwuming, and the others sensed this and shouted in joy. At this time, their cultivations were also very high, and they could clearly sense some of the traces within. Everyone found that under the entanglement of Tao, the aura of the Tao was condensed. This was the sign of breaking through to the meditative forgetfulness realm. Once a trace of the Tao's origin power was condensed, the meditative forgetfulness realm would be complete. Iwuming, Murong Yurua, and the others were just about to rejoice, but they soon realized that they had rejoiced too early. Rumble, rumble, rumble. After the first rumble, the whole world seemed to have entered the New Year's Eve. Loud rumbles burst out one after another, rising and falling one after another. Dozens and hundreds of sounds connected together. It was as if a terrifying cannon had exploded, causing the sky to tremble and the world to tremble. It's Xiaojing and Du Xiaoyao, Little Ba, Little Lin, Little Huang, Yunlong, Iwuming and the others were all stunned. It was as if they had been electrocuted by lightning. They all stood in the huge open space of the desolate country, their eyes dazed. As these rumbles descended, they were all the same as before. Along with the vast power of Tao, they were all fusing together, giving birth to the aura of the Tao. Without a doubt, this was the manifestation of the experts breaking through to the meditative forgetfulness realm. Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, Zhenxing Chun, Jialo Jueyu, Du Xiaoba, Du Xiaohuang, Du Xiaolin, Yi Piaoling, Qianguyu, and the others. These experts had all broken through to the meditative forgetfulness realm at the same time. Ancient Heaven Sect, Hahuan School, Great Snow Mountain, Divine Temple, Beast Alliance, Saman Sword Sect, Sky Thunder Fortress. All of them have people who have reached the meditative forgetfulness realm. Many people were stunned. The terrifying movements coming from all over the world were too conspicuous. The vast power of Tao surged and shot into the sky, making it difficult for people to ignore. In just a short period of time, terrifying scenes appeared all over the divine martial world, shocking everyone. In the past, the three continents, Kyushu, In the other regions of divine martial world, all had people who had reached the meditative forgetfulness realm at the same time. Even though there weren't many of these experts in each force, and they couldn't compare to the Huang country, but when added together, there were almost 100 of them. This was an extremely terrifying power that was hard to believe. To know that there were only a few meditative forgetfulness realm cultivators in each of the 33 geniuses. Adding them all together, there were only a few hundred. But now, over 100 meditative forgetfulness realm cultivators had appeared in divine martial world. Divine martial world is really going to rise. Iwuming mumbled. His old but energetic face was stunned like a wooden chicken. The change this time caused him to feel incomparably shocked. But this wasn't the end. Under the perception of countless people, there were still violent bursts of energy shooting out from all over the world, as if they were resonating with the hundreds of meditative forgetfulness realm cultivators. Layers upon layers of Tao energy appeared and intertwined with each other, like fog rising from the ground. Immortal realm. Many people are breaking through to the immortal realm. Some of the cultivators were shocked. It wasn't hard for them to realize that the Tao energy around the world was boiling. Many living beings who were in isolation were breaking through to the immortal realm. Not only that, even those who weren't in isolation, but were stuck at the peak of the true severing realm, were breaking through to the immortal realm. Comparatively speaking, the appearance of a large number of immortal realm cultivators wasn't as shocking as the appearance of hundreds of meditative forgetfulness realm cultivators. But what was undeniable was that these people were going to become the cornerstone of divine martial world. They were going to be the backbone of this world. Xiaofu, my disciple. The change in divine martial world was shocking, and it shocked all the cultivators in the Huang country. But there was only one person who didn't care about this, and that was Yu Yuqian. The old man had been standing guard outside the Du family's ancestral hall. When the world had just changed, he had rushed to the front of the door. His old eyes shone brightly as he stared motionlessly at the tightly shut door. In Yu Yuqian's eyes, there was only Du Xiaofu. He only hoped that his disciple would wake up. Endless amounts of Tao energy swirled around, and like lightning, it surrounded Yu Yuqian's body. He stared at the Du clan's ancestral shrine, ready to welcome Du Xiaofu's awakening. Inside the terrifying energy, many people felt their strength increasing at a steady pace. This increase wasn't huge, and they weren't able to break through the barrier between realms like other cultivators, but it was still terrifying. After thousands of years, the Huang country once again became a place of opportunity. The cultivators of divine martial world all came here with the mentality of a pilgrimage. They couldn't feel it, but they knew one thing very well. That was that inside the Du clan's ancestral shrine, an unimaginable change was happening. Reality was just as many cultivators thought. When the little black and the lightning connected with Du Xiaofu's life force, the two of them seemed to have the same origin and quickly merged together. Following the arrival of the little black dot, Du Xiaofu's life force suddenly released a terrifying amount of energy, and it lit up with a blinding amount of light. This light was like a sharp sword, carrying with it a horrifying amount of killing intent. It pierced through the blood-colored energy that surrounded the life force. BZZT, BZZT, BZZT. The demon ancestor's primal chaos origin, under the illumination of the light, was like snow in a pot of boiling water. In a split second, it began to melt and disappear. After a few hours, all the blood-colored energy, under the attack of the bright light, turned into nothingness. Thick black smoke came out, and then it completely disappeared. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? The moment the demon ancestor's primal chaos origin disappeared, Du Xiaofu's consciousness immediately returned and asked the three questions of his soul. I am Du Xiaofu. In just a few moments, all the memories flooded him like water and drowned him. Everything that happened in the 18 levels of hell, he remembered everything. BZZZ, BZZZ, BZZZ. After Du Xiaofu's consciousness returned, he sorted out his current state a little. He didn't need to think too much and directly began to transfer his strength to quickly recover. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh between the heaven and earth of Shunwu world. It was as if a storm was brewing. Boundless amounts of energy howled, brushed against the ground and rushed towards the direction of the Huang country. Very quickly, above the Du family's ancestral temple, a giant whirlpool appeared. It swallowed everything and was sucked into Du Xiaofu. Crack, crack, crack. Outside the ancestral shrine, the array formation that Lu Xiaoyu had laid down was filled with heavenly materials sent over by the powerhouses of the 33 heavens. At this time, these treasures began to break apart one by one. The powerful energy within them flowed out and entered the Du family's ancestral temple. In a short period of time, half of the treasures lost their luster and turned into dust. All of their energy was gone. Xiaofu, seeing this scene, Yu Yuqian, who was outside the ancestral temple, was shocked. Then, a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. So many treasures had been placed here by Lu Xiaoyu for Du Xiaofu to recover after he woke up. Wasn't this scene a sign that Du Xiaofu had begun to awaken and needed a huge amount of energy to recover his strength? Thinking of this, Yu Yuqian did not hesitate and took out his Qinkuan bag. Crash, crash, crash. Immediately, treasures piled up in front of the ancestral temple. With a light wave of his arm, these treasures shot out and entered the array. After many treasures entered, they all exploded in a moment, turning into the purest energy that gathered in the huge vortex. Quick, open the treasury and take out all the treasures. Soon, Yi Wuming and Murong Yurua also noticed this scene. They had also been paying attention to Du Xiaofu's movements. When they saw this scene, they immediately gave the order, and the desolate country's experts all took action. A large number of treasures were taken out and thrown into the array set up by Lu Xiaoyu. They shattered and turned into energy that gathered in the whirlpool. Yi Wuming and the others did not feel the pinch. As the strongest force in this world, the desolate country had collected countless treasures that were constantly being taken out. As long as Du Xiaofu could recover, these investments were nothing. No matter how many treasures there were, they could not be compared to the life of the purple-robed youth. The Rock Emperor is about to recover. We should help. At this time, countless experts had gathered in the desolate country. When they saw the actions of the experts here, they naturally understood what they were doing. The divine battle world had long been united. During the great calamity of the devil religion, the desolate country was the leader. Later on, this place became the holy land for all living things. As long as Du Xiaofu existed, as long as the living things that had survived the calamity did not die, this world would have the strongest cohesive force. Experts arrived at the Stone City one after another. The streets could not be squeezed and many people simply floated in the air. They all took out their Qinkuan bags. After taking out some important items, they did not even look at them and directly poured out the treasures inside. The treasures poured out and were all devoured by the array. Some creatures were even more straightforward and directly threw their Qinkuan bags into the array. Boom, boom, boom. The Du family's ancestral hall was in an uproar. The place had become a sea of energy, vast and vigorous energy surging. Under the devouring of the whirlpool, all the energy was sucked into it and turned into the energy that Du Xiaofu needed. Retreat and wait for the Rock Emperor to return. After many creatures contributed their treasures, they all retreated to make room for the people behind them. Everyone was paying attention to the Du family's ancestral hall. They were extremely excited. They wanted to see the young man in purple fly up into the sky and reappear before them. The desolate country could be described as being overcrowded. Not only were there people on the ground, even the air was filled with people. From afar, it looked like a huge flock of birds. However, even though the number of treasures they took out was enormous, they didn't even last for a day before they were all used up. Du Xiaofu was originally heavily wounded. His physical body was disintegrating and his primordial spirit was almost destroyed. The amount of energy he needed to recover right now was unimaginable. After all the treasures turned into dust, the array began to devour the unparalleled energy from heaven and earth. The spiritual energy in the divine battle world was turbulent and the scene was terrifying. The Du family's ancestral hall was like a bottomless pit that continued to devour the energy as if there was no end to it. If things continued to develop like this, the The foundation of this world would be shaken as time passed, and unimaginable changes would occur. But right now, no one cared about this. As long as the Rock Emperor can return, they can just move to the 33 heavens or the 3,000 boundless worlds. However, Du Xiaofu, who was inside the stone coffin, would not allow this to happen. After absorbing all the energy, his physical body had been reconstructed and was lying quietly inside the stone coffin. Du Xiaofu finally felt that the stone coffin that was passed down in the Du family had a secret that he couldn't imagine before. Under his senses, the stone coffin was faintly connected to the entire world. It was like the center of the divine battle world, the foundation of this world. How is this a stone coffin? This is an object formed by the laws of the Tao. Du Xiaofu was shocked from the bottom of his heart. This wasn't the first time he laid inside this stone coffin, but today was the first time he saw such a secret. The stone coffin was far too extraordinary. Under his gaze, it was formed by lines and lines that resonated strongly with heaven and earth. It was as if as long as he could control this stone coffin, he could control everything in the divine battle world. At this time, if he still believed that this object was left behind by the Du family's ancestor with the heaven's path, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. There must be an even more extraordinary origin for this object. But right now, Du Xiaofu couldn't figure out who made this. Since he could not figure it out, Du Xiaofu stopped thinking about it. Inside the stone coffin, Du Xiaofu gently closed his eyes. I need to finish carving my Tao in one go. He sighed softly. Feeling that the energy in his body was nearing its peak, he stopped absorbing the energy from heaven and earth. He must recover his strength as soon as possible and fight against the demon ancestor. Du Xiaofu knew that since he was able to wake up inside the stone coffin, it meant one thing. The demon ancestor hasn't entered the divine battle world yet. There was still a chance. As long as he could recover quickly, there was hope to stop the demon ancestor's final massacre and return the 33 heavens and 3,000 boundless worlds to their former glory. Chapter 2986. Du Xiaofu didn't know the specifics of the current situation, but based on a few things, he could make a rough judgment. If the demon ancestor awakened and started a massacre, Shenwu world wouldn't be peaceful anymore. The countless living beings gathered outside wouldn't be able to wait here so calmly. So, he still had a chance, he still had time. But at the same time, he was also worried. Once the demon ancestor recovered to its peak, it would be a true transmogrification realm. When that time comes, how would he be able to suppress it and kill it? Du Xiaofu lightly exhaled, no longer thinking about these things. Senior brother Lu Xiaoyu was still controlling the outside world. What he needed to do now was to carve out his Tao completely and truly step into the carrier realm. Begin. Du Xiaofu calmed his mind and felt the small black on his Yuan Shan. This was his own Tao, different from Great God Pangu, Great Luo Tianzuan, and the demon ancestor. This was something that truly belonged to him. Du Xiaofu gathered all the energy in his body and channeled it into his mind's Niwen palace. Just like before, he condensed an extremely sharp thin sword and began to chase after his scarlet horse monkey Yuan Shan. This step required an extremely strong belief and willpower. The thin sword was incomparably terrifying, causing one's primordial spirit to feel an instinctive sense of terror and fear, causing it to constantly retreat. However, with his first successful experience, Du Xiaofu's second attempt was much smoother than the previous one. Not long after, he finally restrained his origin spirit tightly and used a thin sword to carve out a fine pattern on it. His own Tao represented breaking free from the shackles of heaven and earth, breaking free from the shackles of heaven and earth. It had an unimaginable meaning. The carrier realm meant that he was truly separated from the greater thousand worlds. Even if heaven and earth were to be destroyed and he lost his vessel, he would still be able to continue living. Du Xiaofu calmly carved out one mark after another on his Yuan Shan during this process. In the outside world, countless living beings in Shenwu world stared at the Du family's ancestral hall with shining eyes. At this time, the terrifying commotion had stopped, and the heaven and earth energy no longer surged. Rock Emperor, All of the living beings were eagerly anticipating the appearance of the purple-robed young man. They weren't in a hurry. They just quietly waited where they were and looked at the Du family's ancestral house. But suddenly, just as Du Xiaofu started to carve the marks on his Yuan Shun, all the living beings in Shen Wu world trembled. In an instant, countless people sat down cross-legged on the ground. Their eyes naturally closed, and their bodies emitted vigorous energy waves. The entire realm was like this, and not a single creature was an exception. As such, only Yu Yuqian, who had come from the 3,000 great worlds, remained conscious. The old man's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly came to a realization and couldn't help but exclaim, Zai Dao. Xiaofu is breaking through to the Dao carrier realm. This situation caused Yu Yuqian to be shocked, but at the same time, he was filled with endless joy. To him, this wasn't something that was hard to understand. Back in the 18 layers of hell, when Du Xiaofu broke through to half-step Dao carrier realm, the Du family's bloodline had already shown a similar situation, and Lu Xiaoyu and the others had also told him about it. Now that the same thing was happening again, Yu Yuqian immediately understood the reason. Du Xiaofu and Shen Wu world had always had an inseparable relationship. He controlled the laws of heaven and could be said to be one with this world. Every time Du Xiaofu broke through, Shen Wu world would change greatly. The countless living beings that were born in Shen Wu world and grew up in Shen Wu world were all products of the Grand Dao. Their bodies were carved with the Grand Dao, and as Du Xiaofu began to carve his own Dao, they would also receive unimaginable benefits. Sure enough, as soon as Yu Yuqian realized this, a terrifying explosion resounded throughout the world. The heaven and earth energy that had just calmed down began to boil again, forming spirit energy ribbons that flowed like rivers in the sky, or dragons dancing in the air. This world is really going to rise again. Yu Yuqian muttered as tears began to roll down his cheeks. He wasn't excited about the changes in Shen Wu world, but because Du Xiaofu had awakened. The stronger Shen Wu world was, the stronger Du Xiaofu would be. That purple-robed youth was really going to return. After waiting for thousands of years, the steps in front of the Du family's ancestral hall had been polished until they were shiny because of his long hours of meditation. Yu Yuqian had waited for this day for far too long. Luckily, it was finally here. In the endless void, all the stars had already been destroyed, and even the dust had been driven away. Lu Xiaofu and the demon ancestor were in the midst of a fierce battle. Both of them were at the enchanting realm, and the power they unleashed was enough to destroy the world. The demon ancestor wasn't in a hurry to kill Lu Xiaofu. He had his own plans. His strength was slightly higher than his opponent, and killing Lu Xiaofu was only a matter of time. Moreover, to kill someone at the enchanting realm like him wasn't an easy task. Lu Xiaofu wasn't in a hurry either. Every time he swung blood sword, it was as if he was going to split the world apart. Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong had already retreated far away, but they could still feel the intensity of the battle. Lu Xiaofu, why are you so stubborn? You'll never be able to defeat me, and you won't be able to escape death in the end. The demon ancestor's tall and sturdy figure stood in the void. He opened his mouth and inhaled. The void shattered and turned into chaos as it was sucked into his stomach. Lu Xiaofu was swept up by this power, and his body swayed. The scarlet-red aura wrapped around his body, trying to drag him into the demon ancestor's mouth. However, when he swung his sword down, the terrifying sword light was like a rainbow that pierced through the sky. It brazenly dispersed the demon ancestor's aura, and he broke free. Is that so? Why don't we make a bet? I bet that the person who dies in the end will be you. Lu Xiaofu walked around leisurely. As he exchanged blows with Luo Ho again and again, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. He looked at the huge demon ancestor as he spoke. Between his words, there was actually an inexhaustible sense of confidence. Such an expression stunned the demon ancestor, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. He couldn't figure out where Lu Xiaoyu's confidence came from to actually say such words to him. Luo Ho had just broken through to the enchanting realm, and his cultivation was slightly lower than his. In addition, He had the immortal body. No matter how one looked at it, Luo Ho had the absolute advantage. As long as Lu Xiaofu fought with him to the end, Luo Ho believed that Lu Xiaofu would die without a burial place. Why would he dare to clamor here? Suddenly, Luo Ho felt a special fluctuation. His expression froze and his eyes, which were as red as two bloody suns, suddenly narrowed. After quietly sensing for a while, his expression suddenly changed, as if he had learned something unimaginable. On his face that had been filled with endless violence, there was a hint of panic. Although this panic was quickly covered up by him, it was caught by Lu Xiaofu's sharp senses. Du Xiaofu, that brat, didn't die. Luo Ho looked at Lu Xiaofu and said in a deep voice. Just as he sensed, there was a terrifying amount of energy coming from the Shanwu world. Even though there was an immeasurable distance between them, he could still sense it. This fluctuation was extraordinary. It was as if an ancient soul had awakened from its slumber, and it was getting stronger and stronger. At this moment, the entire Shanwu world was filled with an indescribable charm. It was extremely terrifying. In Luo Ho's perception, it was as if the ancient Lord Daluo had awakened. This caused the demon ancestor to have an extremely bad feeling. Du Xiaofu sure is tough. I used the origin of chaos to suppress him, and he still didn't die. Luo Ho gritted his teeth and stared at Lu Xiaofu. He knew that Lu Xiaofu had a part to play in this. But what he couldn't figure out was that with Du Xiaofu's strength back then, even with Lu Xiaoyo's help, it was impossible for him to really survive, let alone now that he had awakened and his strength was rapidly recovering. All of this made the demon ancestor's chi surge, and he was boiling with anger. I didn't think the demon ancestor would have such a violent side. Lu Xiaofu stood up, and the smile on his face deepened. He said softly, "My junior brother Du Xiaofu didn't die. This is indeed out of your expectations. But with your knowledge, it shouldn't be hard for you to figure out the key to this, right? You can say that as long as a sliver of his true spirit isn't destroyed, with the Daluo Sky's existence, his recovery is only a matter of time. To be honest, I didn't expect him to be able to awaken so quickly, just in time for this critical moment," Lu Xiaofu said, and he seemed extremely relaxed. Hearing such words, the demon ancestor's face became even more solemn. How could he not know the uniqueness of the Daluo Sky? He also knew the origin of the Du family's bloodline. He also knew why Lu Xiaofu said that as long as Du Xiaofu kept a sliver of his true spirit, he wouldn't be destroyed. It was just that the purple-robed youth had really endured his ferocious attack. With his cultivation back then, he shouldn't have been able to withstand it. But the truth was so unexpected. With Lu Xiaofu's help, that kid had done it. The demon ancestor finally felt threatened. Du Xiaofu's existence was like a knife hanging over his head. So even if Lu Xiaofu had broken through to the phenomenal state, he didn't feel any fear. Even if the god and demon who had opened up the 3,000 boundless worlds returned, Luo Ho still had the confidence to fight with the two of them. To put it even more harshly, even if he was suppressed like he was in the ancient times, so what? Many years later, he would return again. This was the true strength of the undying body. But now, it was different. Du Xiaofu, that kid, was indeed someone who could kill him. Why are you in a daze? Let's continue the fight. Lu Xiaofu suddenly shouted. Taking advantage of the demon ancestor's daze, a terrifying saber-light whirled down, breaking through the void and directly descending in front of the demon ancestor. Even when he attacked, he still had a smile on his face. He looked at Luo Ho indifferently, as if he was saying to him, "Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Humph. So what if Du Xiaofu isn't dead? If I want to kill him, it's not difficult at all. Presumably, even if he recovers, he's at most in the carrier realm. It's just a matter of one blow." The demon ancestor moved brazenly. His pair of sharp claws tore the heavens and split the earth, shattering Lu Xiaofu's saber-light. Then, his body flashed. He was planning to leave this place. Luo Ho's plan was very simple. Since Du Xiaofu was the person who posed the greatest threat to him, he would kill him first. With his cultivation, once he went all out in the 33 heavens and Daluocean, even Lu Xiaofu would be wary. Under such circumstances, As long as he entered Daluotian, Du Xiaofu would be dead for sure. At least, with his cultivation, he wouldn't be able to resist his all-out attack. Do you think I'll let you succeed? Lu Xiaofu immediately saw through the demon ancestor's plan. His eyes instantly turned cold as he looked at him. The saber in his hand slashed out like a waterfall, instantly blocking in front of the demon ancestor. Immediately after, chaotic energy rolled out from Lu Xiaofu's body, spreading out in the void, causing the huge space to turn into a chaotic ocean. Luo Ho's body was wrapped in this chaotic ocean, tightly binding him. His body that was about to leave paused, and he had no choice but to turn around and face Lu Xiaofu's attack. Lu Xiaofu, you can't stop me. Luo Ho was really angry this time. His body rose and fell, and his violent and fiendish aura surged into the sky. He wantonly moved through Lu Xiaofu's chaotic ocean, and every time he passed, all the chaotic energy would be broken. Do you think you still have a chance to turn the tables? Lu Xiaoyu bellowed as he pounced forward. In his hand, terrifying saber light shot out one after another, punishing the heavens and destroying the earth, constantly slashing at Luo Ho. Lu Xiaofu knew that he could not let Luo Ho successfully escape. Otherwise, with his strength, if he really entered the 33 heavens, he would bring a terrible disaster to the creatures there. At the same time, his junior brother Du Xiaofu's life would also be threatened. Therefore, he directly used his full strength and began to fight with his life on the line. Lu Xiaofu, I'll turn you into ashes and never let you reincarnate. Luo Ho roared, almost crazy, and created terrifying collisions with Lu Xiaofu again and again. The void disintegrated one after another under the confrontation between the two. The scene was extremely shocking. The chaotic light burst out, and the entire space was about to explode. In the distance, the only world left in the entire universe, Earth, was like a withered leaf, suffering the attack of the storm, wantonly fluttering. Outside Earth, the protective light shield flickered and was about to shatter. The Demon Alpha and Lu Xiaoyu were far too powerful. Just the shockwaves from their attacks had such terrifying power. The two fought crazily, and as time went by, Luo Ho became more and more furious. Both of them fought with a strong bloodlust, and no longer held back, fiercely clashing. Lu Xiaofu's chest was hit by the demon ancestor, and a few hideous bloody wounds appeared, with black gas coming out, and it was difficult to heal. Luo Ho's abdomen was also slashed by the Blood Slayer, and there was a long and thin wound on it. This battle was too terrifying, and it almost turned the entire void upside down. Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong had already retreated to the Divine Demon Battlefield's location, and they were all shocked by the battle from afar. No one dared to go closer to observe, because a battle between two enchanting realms was not something they could touch. Divine Battle World. The entire world was shaking, and there was a series of rumbling sounds. The scale of the world expanded again, and the spiritual energy became thicker like mist. With Du Xiaofu's breakthrough, an unimaginable change began to happen. Du Xiaofu was carving his own Tao. On his red horse monkey primordial spirit, lines and lines were carved out by the thin sword, and they looked like veins and blood vessels covering the surface of his body. Heaven and earth were resonating, and the laws were rumbling. The world was filled with the sound of the great Tao, and countless living beings were listening to the sound of the great Tao, and their cultivation and strength were rapidly increasing. Those who had broken through the meditative and immortal realms long ago were once again making great strides. Not long after, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoba, and the others were all close to the second stage of meditative forgetfulness, the Oblivion Realm. Many low-level immortal realms directly stepped into mid-level immortal realms, and mid-level immortal realms instantly reached high-level immortal realms. This change was too shocking. The overall strength of the living beings in the Shenwu world seemed to be on par with the 33 heavens in just one day. Hundreds of meditative forgetfulness, and a large number of immortal realms. So many powerhouses, if placed in the past, would be unimaginable. None of this lasted for too long. The cultivation of many living beings was like an arrow piercing through the clouds, and then it stopped. Swish, swish, swish. When everything stopped, one figure after another rushed out from the desolate country. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Yunlong, Jin Xingchun, Du Xiaohuang, Jialo Jueyu, and the others were all in this group. In other parts of the world, a large number of figures flashed and directly arrived in the desolate country, above the Du family's ancestral hall, and stood with countless living beings. There were both meditative and immortal realms. Boom! Not long after the arrival of many living beings, a loud rumble came from the Du family's ancestral hall. Tens of thousands of rays of light shot into the sky, dazzling the world. In the next moment, under everyone's gaze, a purple-robed figure appeared, standing in midair. His aura was as deep as the abyss, as vast as the ocean. Seeing this figure appear, the countless living beings in the Shenwu world couldn't help but become excited. Many people's faces turned red, and some even began to cry. "Greetings, Rock Emperor! Greetings, Rock Emperor!" One by one, the figures bowed down, and the sound of their voices reverberated for thousands of miles. Facing the purple-robed figure, the living beings in the Shen Wu world let out a roar that had been suppressed in their hearts for thousands of years.